is looking at you, kid.
I'm Charles Foster Kane!
Hey, Stella!
Suck on this.
What is happening, everybody? Welcome to our Wrong Reel Best of the Year podcast. And in case you haven't heard, we're a podcast for hardcore cinephiles where we tackle everything from Jean-Luc Godard to Jean-Luc Picard. It's been a while since I used that catchphrase, but it felt appropriate before welcoming back Marcus Pinn, Bill Scurry, and Jonathan James, all of who have prepared a list for their top 10 favorite movies of the year. I'll be playing the role of moderator and doing my best not to interrupt these gentlemen, but who am I kidding? Interrupting people is pretty much what I do. But in any case, let's not waste any time. We have a ton of movies to get to before we start. But I'd say let's start with Marcus. Quickly, everybody, introduce yourselves. Who are you? Where do you come from? Where can they find you online if you want to have continuing conversations with anybody who might be watching this show?
Marcus Pinn at Pinland_Empire or at Hakudo_Empire, PinlandEmpire.com. I'm one of two people on this panel from the great state of Massachusetts. So that's really great. Yeah.
Fantastic. Mr. James.
Hi, I'm Jonathan James, and yeah, I was a frequent or semi-frequent contributor to Wrong Reel during the audio-only days.
Ernst Lubitsch, Preston Sturgis, and Lucchino Visconti.
We also did one on The Descent.
Oh, that's right. Hell yeah. That's a great movie. Yeah.
That was great. That was a live one. I came to the apartment. So I have been listening to the Wrong Reel year-end episode for years, listening to Marcus and Rob Cotto and Martin Kessler and all the different people you've had on over the years. And it is a privilege and a delight to get called up to the big game. So thank you.
Yeah, and shout out to Rob Cotto, who unfortunately could not make it this year, but he's an open invite anytime he wants to come back. Mr. Scurry, who the hell are you?
You all know who I am, Bill Scurry. I'm on Twitter at Liam Scurry, Blue Sky at Bill Scurry. I've introduced myself a billion times, so let's just get right into it, I think.
All right, fantastic. Well, let's someone be bold. Who has the best number 10 in their all-around list to get us off on the proper foot? Who has a bold choice?
I'll take it. And this is I'm fully. I'll cop to this being a sort of rack choice for number 10 for me because I picked Stevie Van Zandt, Disciple by Bill Tech. Now, full disclosure, this is a movie that I helped make. My name is in the credits, but I could not let this year go by this was a big year for Bill Tech. This movie had been under construction for a good long time, and he nailed it. Him and Rob Cotto, can't leave Rob Cotto out. It was just really exciting to see it at the Tribeca Film Festival, big premiere, and Stevie was great in it. I think Bill Tech got all of it. It's a lot of fun. It's a great pop culture document. If you haven't seen it, it's streaming on Max. But that's my number 10 this year.
Any strong feelings, Mr. Penn, about the Stevie Van Zandt doc?
No, I would only keep it out of my list just for bias reasons. Rob Cotto is one of my closest friends. I've known him for literally half my life. Bill Tech is another guy I consider a friend. And, I know that Bill worked on it as well. I consider him a friend as well. But I loved that film. I loved finally seeing it because I didn't know all the behind the scenes stuff, but I just remember knowing that these guys were working on it for so long, and to finally see it on the big screen is just great. And knowing now that someone like Rob, my good friend, can consider Stevie Van Zandt a good friend, I think that's like so cool. I know inside it's like I've been there with there's certain filmmakers that I can consider friends that if you asked me 20 years ago, I wouldn't believe you. So. Yeah,
that's a deep tease for one of your choices in your top 10.
What's that? Oh, yeah, right. All right. We'll get to that movie's higher up in the list, just FYI.
Yeah. I guess when you have a friend who's a filmmaker and you're offering commentary, I feel like if the movie's amazing, then of course you should always give it a shout out. And then if the movie's not amazing and you say, oh, well, I don't want to offer an opinion on my friend's work. But like Jeremy Workman in his new movie, Secret Mall Apartment, it's so goddamn good. I can unashamedly say that when it finally comes out in theaters this year in 2025, it's going to knock people flat. But I'll definitely keep in my back pocket the excuse that I don't comment on my friend's work if and when any of my friends make a movie that is less than satisfactory. But any final words, Mr. Scurry, about the Stevie Van Zandt doc before we push on?
It was really exciting to be a part of it. That was one of the last projects I did in New York, helping out friends before I moved to Amsterdam. So it was sort of a long birthing process, and to see it finally delivered into the market was really exciting. And Marcus was there at the premiere. It was like that too. It was a big reunion of a lot of folks I don't get to see very often. So yeah, I'm biased. I'll admit that, but I'm happy to put this in. I think Rob would put it in his number 10 too. We're somewhere along the line if he was here this year for sure.
Yeah, what I really liked about it was the early 70s, the way it captured a period that I was totally unfamiliar with. That whole New Jersey period, that whole New Jersey sound. I grew up south of the Mason-Dixon. I just didn't get exposed to it. We didn't necessarily worship at the altar of Springsteen the way other people, like we would worship at the altar of like the Allman Brothers or a group like that instead of Springsteen. So for me, it was all basically virgin territory. So for me, it was just a fascinating deep dive into just whole chapters of rock and roll history that I was largely unfamiliar with.
Yeah. HBO does it. That's their thing. HBO they still have an incredible doc apparatus, and as much it took blood away from Billy to do so. They really, shepherded a great product out of his bones.
I was going to say, if you follow Wrong Reel, if you follow Pinn and Empire, by the time we get through this list, you'll see that like my list is pretty biased. I mean, filmmakers. I never hide the filmmakers that I love very much, and quite a few of them are on my top 10. So at the end of the day, there's all a spectrum of biasness in any of these lists anyway. So
yeah, and also it could backfire. Like I always say, like never meet your heroes. Sometimes you might really admire a filmmaker, and then you might meet them or work with them. Like, ooh, they're righteous trash, and yeah, then your opinion can drop. But luckily, Bill Tech is a wonderful, beautiful human being, and he is welcome back on this channel anytime he chooses to appear. But he promised he would come on and talk about the books of Richard Stark, aka Donald Westlake. But I told him we would only do that episode about the movie adaptations of Westlake's books if we did it shirtless. So Bill Tech, I'm calling you out. I'm calling your bluff. Skin off, throw down, oil up, and we'll do our Donald Westlake video. And all y'all are invited as well if y'all want to skin off for the adoring masses. But Mr. Penn, let's push on to you. What is your number 10 for 2024?
Well, speaking of bias and speaking of Wrong Reel, my movie is Guy Madden's Rumors. For those that don't know, the first Wrong Reel episode I did 9 years ago was on Guy Madden.
Was it February or January of like 2016 in your old recording studio?
Yeah.
And we tried to tackle like his entire filmography in like 45 minutes, but anyway.
Since then, he's released so many more features and shorts. I do have to kind of correct myself. It's Guy Madden, Evan, and Galen Johnson. It's a 3-person directorial effort. I love this movie very much. It's also incredibly meta because it's a movie directed by 3 people, and the movie is about a group of people trying to accomplish a single task. So it's kind of just like, quite literally. A 2-director task is pretty difficult, but 3 people directing one movie, one story. It's not like multiple stories. One story is incredibly difficult. I think they pulled it off. I like Guy Madden's style. I'll see anything Alicia Vikander is in, by the way. So yeah, it was put up by IFC Films, so it'll probably be. I don't think it's streaming yet, but it will be very soon. So
yeah, I think it had a limited release in October in New York because I missed it at the New York Film Festival, but I caught it in the theater down at the Alamo Draft House. And Cate Blanchett is fucking hysterical in it. I love that one line. She's like, "Oh, it was super cool, very rock and roll," but she's saying it like in the German chancellor accent. Anyway, Cate Blanchett. You don't really think of her as being like a great comedic actress, but you always think of her as being a very serious actress. But she's actually hilarious in Rumors.
Yeah, every once in a while, Coffee and Cigarettes. She's really good in that. Every once in a while, when they let her be silly or have fun, like Thor Ragnarok. That's not exactly comedy, but she had a lot of fun in that movie. I think when she steps outside of her kind of Elizabeth, Tar, like that comfort zone, I think that's when she really shines. I think more kind of straight-laced people when they do comedy. I think that needs to happen more because it's just so unexpected. And I'm going to get in what I'm talking about now. A few movies up in my list. That's gonna come up again. So,
gotcha. John James, any strong feelings about Guy Madden's unique filmography?
Yeah, I've seen a few Guy Madden movies. So it's interesting. My strongest feeling about Guy Madden is him and Bill Morrison. When I was still living in Boston, presented Dawson. What is it? Dawson City,
Frozen Time.
Yeah, I'm one of those people that goes to the Q&As. Marcus, you're going to make fun of me for this, but I go to the Q&As and I'm the first person to raise my hand and ask a question. And I asked a question that they just thought was the dumbest question, and they just ridiculed me right in front of everybody. So
well, I was going to say, as long as it's good, I don't mind it, but it's just so difficult. But if they, sorry.
I just get so excited when at these Q&As. I get emotional. I just want to start asking questions, and I must have missed the mark on this. But anyways, no, I love Guy Madden's filmography and his relationship with other like independent and artsy filmmakers. I really enjoy it, and so I haven't seen this one yet, though.
I just love that he's still at it. He might be the least commercially successful filmmaker with a long career. I think it was the film Careful when it was released. When they checked the grosses for the opening weekend, it was like zero. Like they'd sold 0 tickets, and it opened like in a couple screens around New York. But like Tales of the Gimli Hospital and Careful and Archangel and all those early movies and Twilight of the Ice Nymphs, resoundingly uncommercial fare. But he has this niche hardcore fans, or short films like Heart of the World or Brand Upon the Brain. I mean, there's so many good ones, or Cowards Bend the Knee. He is just an absolute fucking maniac. And I just love that he's still at it all these decades later and hasn't lost a step.
And it also helps when you have Isabella Rossellini in your back pocket as like a freaking collaborator. But John, you were saying?
I was just going to say, it's one of those things where if you want to find Bergman fans, don't go to Sweden. It's like I've met people from Winnipeg, and I always immediately, I'm like, Guy Madden. And they're like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So.
Or they hate him because they're assigned his work too much. I think it was Martin Kessler. He took a class in Canada where they were assigned to My Winnipeg. And he's like, I don't want to talk about Guy Madden ever again. We had to watch My Winnipeg over and over and over again. I was like, I love My Winnipeg. That's a great movie.
I would love that. Right.
Yeah.
Oh, man. But,
yeah.
And he's also... It's also sad because he's aware of it. It's nothing that he's one of the most self-depreciating people, but in good spirits about it that you'll ever meet. I've been lucky enough to meet Guy Madden. He's my friend Mtume Gant, who weirdly hasn't been on. He's one of those people in this sphere that hasn't done Wrong Reel, but Guy Madden's
I invited him on to tackle some Abel Ferrara, and he said yes, but we just never made it happen.
Oh, he's a fan of Mtume's films. Their movies have been programmed in the same festivals over the years, and they've gotten to know each other. And he hung out with us one night at after Film Forum when Forbidden Room came out. He's super nice. Loves talking about movies. He's really about, as they say, about that life. It's like you would think someone so consumed with movies, when we go to a bar, you just want to drink and have fun. But we hung out afterwards, and he legitimately, first thing he talked about, he brought up Murnau, and it's like that's nice. So Guy Madden. When you think about it, it's like wow, you're the real deal. So.
Now, as he often jokes, he has spent more time in the 1920s than the 1920s. Like that aesthetic of the 1920s, he's completely embraced it. I mean, at least for a couple of decades, made it a style unto itself. But anyway, maybe I'm chewing up all the oxygen in the room about Guy Madden. But he is great for people who are unfamiliar with his work. But Mr. James, what is your number 10?
My number 10 is Hundreds of Beavers.
That you're not allowed to talk about that. This is a family-friendly show. What are you doing here? You're going to get me thrown off YouTube.
Well, no. If you want to talk about the aesthetic of the 20s, this is a movie. I don't know. I have. I wrote down some fun notes about it. It's a Rube Goldberg machine that lasts for 108 minutes. It's an extended Keaton Chaplin homage. So anybody that loves the aesthetic of the 20s might find something they like in this movie. Or maybe this is more for you, James, but a bit of a furry fetishist fever dream.
I've got some inappropriate fetishes in my back pocket, but I never have really embraced the whole furry phenomenon. And I heard about there's a furry convention, I think it's in Georgia or somewhere, where the hotel had to finally ban the participants because they were leaving bowls of milk out in the hotel rooms that they were licking out of, and they were getting rotten and spoiled. But anyway, so I judge nobody for what gets their rocks off. But so how does the furry phenomenon play into this movie?
Yeah, so it's a black and white film. It's not silent, but it's almost no dialogue, mostly just grunts and some great music. But it's a movie that starts off with a very simple premise about a Applejack salesman, basically an apple cider salesman, who has his entire business destroyed by beavers.
Gotcha.
And then in order to get revenge, and then also because he's starving.
Literal beavers or figurative?
I think the whole thing is so tongue-in-cheek, and it starts off and it's just pure slapstick. Like I said, if you like Buster Keaton or you like the Three Stooges, you'll love the beginning of this movie. But then it adds on this like video games physics and video games logic that eventually just rolls off into like absurdly cosmic proportions, this crescendo at the end. And it is just, there's no way for me to describe it other than this one-man war against nature, this one-man war against beavers. And by
did you catch it
beavers,
at New York Film Festival, or how did it pop up on your radar?
yeah, so this was, I don't know if this is something you guys all caught or came up in your social media realms, but this is something where the people that I was connecting to were all talking about it. And I looked at the concept and looked at the cover art and thought, there's no way in a million years I'm going to like this movie. Watched it on a lark. And in the first few minutes, I sort of still had very low expectations. And eventually it just built into this thing where I could not imagine that these guys did it for $150,000.
Holy moly.
Yeah. And I think it's got a lot of critical acclaim. And so they've got really bright future ahead of them. But it goes to show with like a little bit of animation and some ingenuity, you can make a micro budget into a cult
It makes
classic.
me wish I had the clip from Naked Gun prepared. I was like, nice beaver. And she's like, thank you. I just had it stuffed. Let me help you with that. But anyway, classic bit.
I'm watching this tomorrow. I just pulled it up. It's in the background right now. The trailer is obviously on mute, and it's like, oh, this literally looks like a Guy Madden movie. And then I went, and then a quick Google thing. First thing that comes up on Google, a little snippet from the interview where he's shouting out "Brand Upon the Brain" by Guy Madden, the
Nice.
director. Oh, this
Great
looks
minds
awesome.
think alike. Very cool.
Yeah, there you
Yeah,
go.
Brand Upon the Brain is very nice.
Yeah, love that movie.
Yeah.
Well, any final word about the beavers, Mr. James?
Just that there is not a slow second in this movie. It is propulsive, and it's zany, and you can never predict where it is eventually going to go. And it's not a thinking man's movie, although it probably does have like some microcosm of how economics works or something crazy like that. But leave all of that at the door. It's just pure fun. So
Very cool. All right. Yeah, I mean, you and Marcus both always have the obscure films in your back pocket. When I check out y'all's top 10 list at the end of the year, I'm like, I haven't even heard of half of these. Like, well, where did these movies come from? And like, I go to film festivals and I read reviews and I go to the theater, but somehow there are always a bunch of niche films that slip through the cracks on any given year.
streaming on Amazon, I believe.
All right. Very cool. Well, Mr. Scurry, we are back to you with number nine. What do you have in store for us?
Night with the Devil, directors Colin and Cameron Cairns. Hang on a second here. I think I blinked out of existence.
You blinked up and you said Late Night with the Devil, starring the great David Dastmalchian, who I saw present the movie down at the Alamo Drafthouse in Lower Manhattan. But you're making a very serious expression, so you're either frozen or you're thinking really hard.
Wow, this is and I'll just talk until he comes back. That movie had, when it came out, the trailer looked great, and then when it came out, a lot of people kind of disliked it.
Funderburg hated it. Yeah, he's like, "Why is everybody talking about this movie?" I was like, "I liked it," but yeah, Funderburg was
But not even just him. I've heard meaner stuff said about it than what Chris said. So it's interesting / nice to hear. I wasn't particularly a fan. I wasn't violently angry at it though, like a lot of folks were. But
what was the
so
gist
nice
of the main pushback on it? Because when I saw it, I recognized it had severe budgetary limitations, but I liked the whole gimmick. I like the whole approach. I like the performance by Dastmalchian. But what is the main grievance against it?
For me personally, it just wasn't my thing. But realistically, when the trailer came out, the trailer was so good, everyone looked forward to it. And then it turns out there were a couple of like cutaway things that used AI art in it, and a lot of people were anti-AI art, which is fine. Exactly. It wasn't like he was trying to hide it. I'm not big into AI art, but suddenly I think people were looking for other things to dislike about it instead of just coming out and say, hey, I don't, because it was such a tiny thing about the movie. I'm not making a case for or against it. I'm just saying this is what I think. I think people were looking forward to it, and then they felt let down. But Bill's back, so let him talk about his pick.
Monstro Elisa Bill. So make the case for Late Night with the Devil, which I did enjoy, and I saw back in, I guess, late last winter.
I thought it was a great formal experiment. These two guys, I don't know what they've done before, but they're sort of working with zero budge down there in Sydney. And you know what? I hate when Aussies and English and they approximate our accents and they try to like fake a little bit of like American thing. This one got by me. I was really okay with it. I like Des Malkian quite a bit. And I love the idiom of like Mike Douglas, Johnny Carson, and like the peak of the late 1970s. I love that video feel, the actual rolling live audience camera. There's just something about the form of this taking place almost in real time in a studio. The Satanism thing is interesting. It's kind of stock. I mean, a guy sells his soul. I just like the way they did it. There's something about the way it looked, the way it seemed like it was very immediate. It was happening in front of you, and that's what elevated it above just regular ass Satan shit. By fixing, again, a guy who's really buzzy at the moment, like Des Malkian. I think he's having a moment. I mean, he has been in a moment for a couple of years now where he's picking.
Yeah, basically since The Dark Knight, he's been enjoying. It was that the line by Bob Balaban that's quoted in The Trip, like, never be hot, like, always be kind of like warm or cool. Like, he's always around doing things like the Suicide Squad, but he never really fully takes off.
The Ant-Man films, he's in the first two. Ant-Man,
totally.
You know, he's doing it all, yeah.
He does a voice in the third one too. He's not on camera, but he does a voice in the third Ant-Man movie too. Yeah, the guy's got good taste. He was in Dune 1. You know, he played Piter de Vries. It's like he's got the soul of a character actor and he's got the face of a character actor, but he's also got really good taste. He shows up in interesting places, and I think that he this had a sort of like gigantic, small scale horror film festival rollout, and so this was really culty. I think with a lot of people who were like horror tastemakers. And since they dig him, he may have gotten this movie made. It may have been on his back as sort of a genre guy right now. I like seeing that. And you know, like I said, I thought it was successful, and it really steered into the fact that it was like low to the ground and super, super simple.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I think perhaps some of the reason it got some massive pushback is like, you know, as we're all well aware, sometimes little indie movies that punch above their weight class might be on the receiving end of being overpraised. And anytime a movie's overpraised, the inevitable pushback will emerge. And I worry the same thing's going to happen to The Brutalist, where so many people were making comparisons to movies like Andrei Rublev. I'm like, everybody tap the brakes, stop comparing it to Andrei Rublev, and just like judge it on its own terms, which we will get to later on. But film freaks, they get excited, and I'm guilty of it as well. Like, oh, this is the next this is the next that. And more often than not, it backfires against whatever movie that you're trying to help.
Yeah.
Oh, this is good. So I can scratch off my Andrei Rublev notes.
Exactly.
About The Brutalist. Thank you for the heads up.
Yeah. I love Andrei Rublev, but it's like, yeah, I mean, when trying to compare any movie to like a Russian epic from 60 years ago, it's like, anyway, it seems, unless you're talking about yet another Russian epic from the exact same period directed by like Sergei Parajanov or something like that, it just seems like a strange comparison to make. But people like to get hyperbolic, which I get. I'm hyperbolic in both my praise and in my condemnation. So yeah, I'm guilty of all this behavior. But Mr. Pinn,
yes.
What do you got for us for your number 9?
It's another, I guess you could call biased pick because it's by one of my favorites, Bruno Dumont's The Empire. It's sort of his take on the Star Wars saga. It's like, as crazy as it sounds, it's just like imagine Star Wars or The Empire Strikes Back directed by Bruno Dumont. Like, it's
Should
an
he have
epic
directed
film.
The Acolyte instead?
No, well, maybe. I would have watched it because I haven't watched The Acolyte. If Bruno Dumont's name is attached
Power
to
of
anything,
One.
I'd watch it. I saw it towards the beginning of this year, and for the majority of the year, I kept thinking, I was like, it's good, it's so well made. This is like his most CGI special effects movie. I mean, literally, where half the movie takes place in outer space. There's spaceships, there's lightsabers, all that stuff. And for months, I was like, is he poking fun at Star Wars? Is he doing that cliche art house director that doesn't like big budget movies? But it turns out I think it's just a genuine love of cinema throughout this movie. So that's why it ended up in my top 10. Because if I had an inclination that he was just kind of making fun of big budget films, as a smaller budget art house filmmaker, I would have wrote this movie up because I hate that kind of mentality. But yeah, it's really good. I liked it a lot. I like anything by Bruno Dumont. At this
For
point,
people out there who might not even be aware of who Bruno Dumont is, I feel like he comes up quite a bit in our end of the year
any
conversations. What's the kind of the gateway drug to help people get into his work?
So for me, I think it's his second film. It's called Humanity. I mean, if you want to start at the beginning, it's not that, with the life of Jesus. But I think humanity is what really kind of like sets people off. The only problem is if you go in order, his like third, fourth, and fifth movies aren't that good. So it's almost like the first two movies will get you hooked, and then movies 3, 4, 5, possibly 6 would be like, what the hell is this? So he's a director that I would jump around. I would watch Humanity, and then I would immediately jump to Slack Bay with Juliette Binoche. It's a dark comedy that came out 2016. This French. It's really, really good. So I would kind of start at the beginning and then go towards more recent. Don't go in order with Bruno Dumont. Absolutely do not. Yeah.
John James, any strong feelings about Bruno Dumont?
So Marcus and the year-end episode got me to actually see the only Bruno Dumont movie I've ever seen, which is the first Joan of Arc movie. And I got so confused about the heavy metal take on Joan of Arc. I know it's not everything that he does is like that, but I think I got a little confused on my first intro.
No, oh God. See, when you have a director that you love, it's kind of like, I almost wish I could have stopped you. But it is what it is. Yeah, I think at this point in his career, a lot of the movies he makes now are for people like me, who is just like, I know what to expect from this guy because he's been making films now for 30 years. But yeah, so for anyone listening, don't watch The Childhood of Joan of Arc first.
Fair enough. Mr. James, what is your number 9?
So my number 9 is Challengers.
Gotcha. I got a clip. First clip of the evening. Let's let her rip in 3, 2, 1.
We're in room 206.
Want me to come tuck you in?
No. We just keep talking. About tennis.
Good night.
We have beer.
Okay.
All right. Lay it on us. Luca Guadagnino had 2 movies this year, Challengers and Queer, and he's got American Psycho on deck with Austin Butler. I feel like he's kind of reaching a career high, but lay it on us. What did you like about Challengers?
Yeah, absolutely. So I moved to New York City a few years ago. Actually, shout out to this podcast. Marcus from the podcast was like the first person to reach out to me and had me come over to his house and everything for a barbecue when I moved in here. So anyway, moving to New York City, the U.S. Open for me is the best time of the year around here. And so I never in a million years, I was not raised in a family where tennis was an option.
I've gone the last 3 years. We should hang out next time. My dad goes every year.
It's the best. And so I've gotten into tennis. And so Luca Guadagnino, one of my favorite directors, making a movie about tennis. I'm not the biggest Zendaya fan. I'm warming up to Josh O'Connor, but it didn't matter. He could have made this movie with anybody, and with Timothée Chalamet playing the ball, and I would have shown up day one. Big shout out to the soundtrack, basically 9 Inch Nails, Atticus Ross, and Trent Reznor. Just an awesome soundtrack. Yeah. As soon as I sat down, I was ready to start playing tennis. I'm terrible at tennis, but yeah, and everybody talks about the hot and heavy, the sweaty sexuality of the film. That's also really fun too. I enjoyed it quite a bit and saw it in the movie theater, and it was a great experience.
Is it the best tennis movie ever made?
Oh,
it's a short list, but not a lot of them. The only other one that ever comes to mind is Strangers on a Train, which is kind of about tennis for about 10 minutes.
Oh,
and then
Match Point, Woody Allen.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, Match Point, and there's the Billie Jean King film. But Match Point, once again, the tennis is a maybe 20 minutes part of it. But it's a short list of tennis movies that are worth watching. But I think Challengers is the best tennis movie ever made.
I'd say Match Point might be better, but this is a lot more fun. Watching Woody Allen do a remake of Crime and Punishment with all of the weight that Woody Allen brings to him is a different experience to this. But yeah, this was great fun, and Luca Guadagnino,
also, he found a way to stage the matches that's really exciting. Like I enjoy watching tennis then and there. On TV, it's a little dry. I just feel like the format and the way the court is shot, it's a little inert. But this film, it's like it's putting the camera like in the ball, and you're getting like thwacked across the net and that sort of thing. It's really visceral, really intense, really stylish. My only real criticism of Challengers was that it didn't really go hard enough into the erotic side. I mean, you got to see those 2 dudes swap and spit, as my dad described it, but I was like, Zendaya, I feel like she was tapping the brakes a little bit. I don't feel like she's fully ready to let go of like the little girl roles and embrace like the womanly roles. I was like, this was your chance to kind of go like full Sharon Stone. You should have like really gone for it. The movie was excellent. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I just felt like it was a little cautious when it came to the sexuality, but maybe that's not the story that they wanted to tell. But very entertaining movie, very watchable. Yeah, and I think Luca Guadagnino between this and what was this cannibal movie which came out like only like a year or so ago?
Bones and all.
Oh,
Bones
Yeah,
and
and
all.
this and Bones and All, and obviously, what was the Tilda Swinton one from like 2010?
I am love.
Yeah, that one was fantastic. But yeah, Luca's rapidly putting together a pretty damn good filmography. Or Bigger Splash, which obviously was a remake, but still, I will see his American Psycho fresh adaptation. I'm not going to call it a remake because it's just a new adaptation of the book, and I'll probably end up reading the book again in preparation.
If Guadagnino wants to show that he's really edgy, don't do Austin Butler. Get Armie Hammer off the bench and have him come in as American Psycho. I think people would
He'd be
get a
good
kick
at
out
it.
of that.
He might have aged out of it. I mean, Patrick Bateman's like 24 or 25 in the novel, but Austin Butler I think is like 32. But yeah, Armie Hammer might not. I mean, if they'd made it right around the time of like Social Network, I feel like Armie Hammer would have been perfect. But yeah, apparently all the accusations of cannibalism were total BS. So I'm uncanceling Armie Hammer, bring it back. And if he is a cannibal, well then let's talk about it. All right, so where are we? Are we up to number 8? Mr. Bill Scurry. What do you got for us?
I got A Different Man, director Aaron Schimberg. This movie stuck out to me. First of all, it's really darkly comic. It was sort of semi-satirical, but it was also it was ballsy enough to use Adam Pearson, the actor who has I forget, neurofibromatosis. He was a sort of a very differently complected man who was eaten by Scarlett Johansson and Under the Skin. Turns out that
like,
guy is
like your features just keep growing for whatever reason.
he is just one of the most dandy Englishman charismatic dudes in the world. And who knew that there was like this guy inside of this? I mean, it's nice that the old shibboleths about you know people who are sort of either what you call handicapped or differently abled. You know, there's nothing about him that sort of demands pity, or he just simply shows up and like wins you over with his performances. His interviews are dazzling. He's a raconteur in the old sense. It's like listening to Quentin Crisp all over again. And so the real like four-dimensional chess of this movie was that they cast Sebastian Stan, who again is picking great roles. He's got good taste. He was a hardcore theater actor in New York. He came up the old-fashioned way by working on the boards.
What's that Michael Haneke movie where he's like 9 years old?
I was gonna step in and say that he was in his first movie was 71 Fragments. So for all the Winter Soldier people, he started out in a Haneke film. His second Haneke's third film. Yeah.
Yeah, because he was born in like Romania or something, wasn't he?
Exactly.
Yeah. Constanta, Romania.
His credit in the film is Romanian child in the credits of the movies.
Yeah, I would not have noticed that, but you and I did an episode about Michael Haneke and you pointed it out. So
yeah.
Yeah, but I just the movie, you know, what it does is it puts him in prosthetics at the beginning as that same neurofibromatosis face, the complexion, and there's there's a lot of body horror going through movies this year because it's very much like The Substance. He undergoes this really painful experimental process. He sloughs the old face off, and he's the conventionally handsome Sebastian Stan, and he's been an actor the entire time. This character, so it turns out his career founders when he gets this incredibly beautiful face. Just at this, as the same moment happens where Adam Pearson's character alights into the scene, and turns out he is incredibly charismatic, and he almost like winds up stealing the roles with that original face. So again, it's not outwardly humorous. It's really dark, but it is funny, and there's just like great reactions from Sebastian Stan losing his mind. He goes to the deep end really well, and again, he lets Aaron Schimberg, the director, lets Adam Pearson just be his normal like a super charismatic English self as a dandy who's just has a whole wardrobe of kerchiefs and neckerchiefs and loud shirts, like they're out of the George Harrison India Beatles collection. And Sebastian Stan gets to do a lot of like just a blank-faced outrage and just yawning into the void. It was really entertaining, and I guess not a lot of people saw it or something like that. I mean, he had a big year.
Yeah,
Sebastian Stan was
anytime he
missing The
tries to do
Apprentice.
something that's not Bucky or the Winter Soldier, people just ignore it. Like The Apprentice also got ignored, and I thought The Apprentice, I ignored it myself until I was told to hunt it down by Ron. I'm blanking on Ron's last name. Sorry, Ron, aka Ronaldo from Carlito's Way. But Ron told me I needed to check it out, and I was delighted by the performance. But I feel like Thunderbolts is going to completely, totally suck ass. But at least people will see him in it. But I actually saw him on McDougal years ago. I was walking down and he was on the phone with like a baseball cap on. I just went, Winter Soldier! And he gave me a little like head nod and just kept walking while talking. I was like, yeah, we're buds. But anyway, I'm a big Sebastian Stan fan. I want nothing but the best for him. And obviously he's got the chops, but sadly, these two movies that he appeared in where he's more of a character actor, they just slipped through the cracks for whatever reason. Did anybody else see The Apprentice?
No, I made a point to my wife and I. We were like, oh, it's streaming. We need to watch it. So I'm going to make a point.
Yeah, because I avoided at the time. I was like, you know what? Maybe I've seen enough of Donald Trump this year. But it was actually wildly entertaining. And Jeremy Strong's really good as Roy Cohn anyway. So if you like really mean, aggressive, combative films about New York in the late 70s and early 80s, The Apprentice totally delivers.
Also, I got to say, if comedic roles were more appreciated, because that is still very much a thing, Sebastian Stan in Hot Tub Time Machine would still be remembered. I think sometimes
what's that
people
gymnastics
forget.
movie he did, like The
He's
Bronze, where he has
The
that
Bronze.
gymnastics
The
sex
Bronze.
scene?
Oh, or that
Yeah.
too.
That
Yeah.
scene's hilarious as well. Like,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah. Everything he does in Hot Tub the Time Machine is so funny. He's a good comedic actor.
Totally. Absolutely. So I think we are up to Marcus's number 8, I believe.
The Brutalist, Brady Corbett's
Nice. All
The
right. We got
Brutalist.
our first clip, and I suspect this is going to pop up on more than one list. So we'll slow down and unpack this movie. But here's a little clip from The Brutalist.
These are yours, yes?
Yes.
All of them?
Yes.
Tell me, why is an accomplished foreign architect shoveling coal here in Philadelphia?
All right. So quick question. John James, Bill Scurry, is The Brutalist on y'all's list?
Number 7.
Yeah, for me, it was number 6 on my list. I'm sorry, John, what did you say?
It's my number. It's my number.
Oh, it's your number 1. All right, so let's slow down and I'll take a breath. Marcus, you are an architectural draftsman. Give us your whole rant, your whole spiel on The Brutalist.
You know, I thought this movie was really good, minus one scene which like really annoyed me. But it's the one scene that I keep thinking about. I mean, it's like, yeah,
The love in the trenches scene.
yeah, it's like, but you know, immigrants come here and they get screwed over by big rich Americans. We get it. Like, we literally didn't need the. I mean, there's a scene earlier on where he throws a coin at him and then he says, "Can I have that back, please?" Like, that alone, you don't like that. That's we get it. From that point on, we get where this is at. But take the architecture out for a second. It's almost like Van Buren is kind of the most interesting character because, like, in his head, there's this like weird, twisted, romantic love story. He's one of those people who he has all the money, but he clearly wanted to be this like intellectual, artsy person, and he's not. So he's living it through Laszlo Toth. And notice he gets real kind of bitchy and cunty when Laszlo Toth's wife shows up. It's almost like I was explaining to my wife, I was giving her the rundown of the movie, and it's like, you know, it's that whole thing where you have a work wife, and then you have the holiday party, and then your real wife or your real husband shows up, and your work wife and your work husband gets jealous. It's totally that relationship. And I think this might be the best performance that Guy Pearce has ever done.
Yeah, I think so.
We had my
Really,
audience
really good.
screaming with laughter. I saw The Village East by Angelica on opening night, and every time he even exhaled, the audience was howling with laughter.
Yeah, I mean, the story he told about meeting his like birth grandparents is like really, it's like, wow. So yeah, and as far as the architectural aspect, there's like, from literally being in that world, it's like, it's true, man. There's such petty nonsense where like the original architect, if they're still alive, is like, I didn't want the stair rail to be over here. It's supposed to be over here 2 feet. It's like when Laszlo Toth, who by the way is a very interesting, complex person. It's like, does it really matter if the ramp is over here 3 feet versus over here 3 feet? Like, why, you know? But I get it. It's one of those things where like, if they take an inch, then they'll take a mile kind of thing. So it's this whole crazy control thing, and that's where all that comes from. But I'm also on the practical side of stuff. So when the movie cuts to 1958 and you see all the guys in the drafting book, like that's me. Like that's what I do. Except it's on the computer, and I'm on the technical side where it's like I get it. You have this nice fancy building, but the HVAC unit has to be on the outside of the building. It's the only way because of how the building was designed that we can get heat into. And it's always this like dick measuring contest. It's always this battle between the architects and the practical people. So yeah, I think there's also always going to be kind of a naive look at architecture from a non-architect person making it. It's always about, oh, there's sketches laid out all over the floor and that kind of stuff. But there's so much technical code that goes into it, but it's so boring that nobody wants a movie about that or to make it. Unless maybe you're Frederick Wiseman, I could see him doing that. But other than that,
but I feel like it's one of those topics where a little bit like running a restaurant or making a movie, everybody feels like they know what great architecture is. And there's probably like, a very small fraction of 1% who actually knows and can appreciate the function of architecture and how the form follows its function and that sort of thing. But I feel like if you've got the money, people want their opinions to be known. I feel like that's one of the things the movie handles best is the tension between the well-intentioned but naive person who's got all the resources and the brilliant architect who's quite literally pulling his hair at the roots and doing heroin from all the stress of trying to get this dream project completed.
Yeah. And that's another important thing too. Going back to Van Buren, it's all about the money. It really comes down to, it's one of those things where you want to do what you have to do. It's all about the money man, and then sometimes the money man can be an issue. So, yeah, and I think Brady Corbett is such a good filmmaker. Given the budget of this movie, I'm still in disbelief. I still think someone's lying, and I mean that as
33-day shooting schedule. 33 days,
a month. Nothing. Yeah, something can't be right, but I mean that in the best way possible.
The fucking Hungarian crew works for pennies. That's why, because they made it outside of Budapest for nickels. That's why they saved the money on it.
Well, there you go. Yeah.
Well, hooray for Budapest. All right, John James, it's your number one movie of the year. Tell us why.
Yeah, so I saw Vox Lux in a movie theater when it came out, and it was actually one of the movies that was a big hit at Sundance the year that I went, and I missed it at Sundance. Everybody was talking about it when I was there, but I'm disappointed because movies just kind of always better when it's at Sundance. People go fucking nuts over movies there. Anyways, so I saw it in the movie.
So cold. Everybody's just relieved to be in the theater.
I saw it at TIFF.
Nice.
The year it came out, yeah.
And I haven't seen Childhood of a Leader. As soon as I can grab a hold of it, I'm going to. But even without having seen it, knowing the concept of it, I looked up Brady Corbett, basically described Vox Lux as a look into the pageantry of evil. And it feels like he's doing a secret trilogy here. This movie has so many fun things going on. Like Marcus, as you were saying, everybody in the theater was laughing when I saw it this morning. Packed theater, 9 a.m. in the morning here at Lincoln Center. And
was it on the big IMAX screen?
No, it wasn't. It was on the
Lincoln Center AMC across the
street.
Lincoln
Center AMC, Theater 2, which is where they have the 70 millimeter showings.
Nice.
And so completely, and it's been packed for days because I have the app so I can see where everybody's sitting. So anyways, so everybody's laughing at Guy Pearce. It's obviously lots of beautiful imagery, like when they're looking at the Italian marble quarry and all of these things. But I went to UMass Amherst. I went to undergrad there, studied philosophy. And so one, I know a thing or two about brutalism, seen a lot of brutalism architecture from my time there. And two, I know about the problem of evil. And so all I'm watching this movie is it just like trying to navigate everything that he's packing in here with all of the fun things that are going on screen, all the beautiful things, but also, kind of intellectual commentary on what role does God have in a world filled with so much evil. So anyways, I don't know. It scratched a certain itch of mine. And this is like my favorite movie, not only of the year, but it's my favorite movie of the decade so far. And my favorite movie since Burning in 2018. So I'm a huge fan of The Brutalist. I hope that doesn't put too many people off of it.
Well, it is suffering from overpraise, but it's a magnificent movie, and I found it to be incredibly inspiring. And I feel like it's very easy to get bitter and cynical about the youngins out there. But for me, I just felt complete and total relief throughout the entire 3-hour, 4-minute running time that there are filmmakers in their 30s that aspire to greatness and are not content just to do the 13th Alien movie or the 14th Marvel movie or 30th Marvel movie. They actually want to do something different with the medium of film and actually have the tools and the talent and the wherewithal to give us champagne for the price of beer. It looked like $100 million. It was shot for fucking nothing. But Mr. Scurry, what are your thoughts on The Brutalist?
Everything that's dumb, cruel, especially ugly is your fault.
It's your fault. Line of the year. There's no close second. It's such a good scene.
Or I always find our conversations to be very intellectually stimulating. You
Yeah.
said everything Guy Pearce was a corker. It's amazing. You know, it did the small things correct. Just a little thing like when Alessandro Nivola throws him out of the house after the thing with the library goes to shit. And Alessandro Nivola just sort of fabricates this story about you made a pass on my wife. It was so little and it was so petty, but it was so correct. It was so minutely and keenly observed in that one little moment. And he never comes back. He's gone after a third of the movie. It's amazing. But I thought that by the time I got to the end and I'm watching this scene in the Carrara Quarry in Italy, I thought, this is Malick. I know that there's a lot of callbacks to art. Yeah, it was so beautiful. Like when they're pouring the water over the sheared surface of the rocks. I've never seen anything like that before. It was like you were looking at Lubezki cinematography through the eyes of Malick's camera. And I mean, it was just one stop along the way. It was one diversion as this movie is getting to its fevered, insane conclusion. But it took time to just absolutely do things that were beautiful and to give enough room for, if Adrian Brody has a career, no doubt about that. But this is the thing that he'll be remembered for. This is not his first real performance, but it's
the penis.
Not the dick. No, it's his greatest performance. I think that this is what he'll be remembered for. He got there a couple of times. Not the penis. I mean, he has the Oscar for it.
Yeah,
but it's like this is what he's he can go to bed on this one for the rest of his life.
He's been hitting home runs ever since. I think the first thing I saw him in was it the Summer of Sam, the Spike Lee film?
Sure.
Was incredible in that. He's been doing amazing stuff now for 25 fucking years, and
right. But he's been on the bench for like a decade almost.
I was gonna say he had some. He's been in some not so good stuff, and then supporting. But TV, HBO specifically, has like kind of brought back his greatness over the last couple of years. Winning Time, he's so great as Pat Riley.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I forgot. Yeah, he was incredible in Winning Time. And that show canceled prematurely.
And a couple of episodes of Jesus, what's the the family movie, the family show, Brian
Succession?
Cox and Succession. The few episodes of Succession, that he shows up on. It's like, and people are like, oh yeah, he's really good. It's Adrian Brody. So
he made a random surprise appearance by mistake at my 30th birthday party. My little sister had a store on Melrose, and her partner was turning 30. Her best friend was turning 30, and I was turning 30. He's like, oh, let's all throw a birthday party together. And it was one of those parties that was kind of spilling out onto the sidewalk. And in the middle of the party, suddenly Adrian Brody walks in, and he kind of looks around, realized he wasn't supposed to be there. And then he walked right out. I was like, hey, that counts. He came to my birthday party. So I'm chalking that up as a win. So yeah, he and I are best buds, even though I don't think we even made eye contact. But yeah. All right. So quick question. There's one controversial scene, and I apologize for spoilers. If you don't want to hear spoilers, skip ahead a minute or two. I found the controversial scene to actually be surprisingly tame because I'd heard about it in advance, and I was expecting something like Gaspar Noé's Irreversible. It's like, all right, they're gonna fucking get down to it with a movie called The Brutalist. I was expecting something truly horrific, and by the end of it, I was like, I don't even know if it's physically possible just to kind of slip it in like that. But y'all tell me, am I being unnecessarily perverse, expecting something really grotesque?
I do feel good that you said that because it's like, how did he even get it? But anyway,
no lube or nothing. He just kind of we're coming in.
But it's not so much that it's not. Oh my God, it's so disturbing. It's not that. It's just the act itself. It's like we know what's going on. It's almost like they might as well have had a title card. It's like, hey, in case you didn't know, immigrants come to this country and they get taken advantage of. It was just so like, I just thought it was unnecessary. But I'm not going to let one unnecessary scene ruin all the beauty that I saw before and after it. So it's like,
But that led to my only real criticism of the movie is that I found the big climactic scene where the wife comes to the house to be a little bit anticlimactic because I wasn't feeling the rage that I think the film expected me to feel from the earlier Violation. But otherwise, I mean, for a movie that's 3 hours and 40 minutes long, 3 hours and 35 minutes of it, I was entranced and totally riveted by what I was watching.
Yeah.
I really
like-
at the end, the very last thing over the credits is a needle drop to Italo Disco, Michelangelo LaBianca's "One for You, One for Me." I have that song and I've listened to it for years, and it was like, this is just such a weird turn as this movie ends with the show in Italy. You know, you get the clip of this career, all these slides of these buildings that he's being credited for, and then they go to this Italo Disco, like 1978 hit. It was surreal, and I'm like, why not? Why not have the anticlimactic confrontation over dinner? And then there's him in a wheelchair not saying anything, and then you go to this song over the credits. It's just, everything about it was delightful.
There's also a nice callback to Vox Lux where the same actress that plays
Raffi Cassidy,
person
yeah, she did
in
the
a
same
different
thing.
era. She did the same thing at the end of that movie, and then later on, you know.
That's right.
And what's his Joe Alwyn? He's a guy who he might not necessarily be every movie he's in isn't great, but he's a guy working now with like all these filmmakers I like: Claire Denis, Yorgos Lanthimos, Joanna Hogg, Brady Corbett. It's like he keeps showing up in stuff that I always make an effort to go to the theater and see. So, yeah.
So, Mr. James, is Brady Corbett a new directing superstar? Is he going to is he going to be a flash in the pan? What are your predictions for what the future might hold for him? Because for me, I'm hoping that we've got 30, 40 more years of great movies like The Brutalist.
Yeah, I'm the worst at predicting these because I was always the one that said Aronofsky was going to have a better career than Paul Thomas Anderson. So, you know, I have no idea what's going to happen next. I hope that Brady Corbett continues to build on this. I think, you know, the first two movies I've seen of his, he knocked it out of the park. And now this is going to, you know, when award season really kicks into full gear, when the Oscars get announced, he's going to continue having more and more runway. And, you know, hopefully we get to see a lot more challenging movies from him.
Yeah, I just like the idea that when it comes to A24, it's no longer just, oh, what are Ari Aster and Robert Eggers up to? There are new voices emerging, new filmmakers, and obviously, you know, I love watching movies by my aging heroes, guys like Paul Verhoeven and whatnot, but there are a lot of filmmakers in their 80s and 90s now. I'm like, maybe their best years were 30 or 40 years in the past. It's nice to have some younger filmmakers like, well, maybe their best work is still yet to come.
You know, but Jamie, I get chagrined because Todd Field has sort of been run out of the business after Tar. He says he's not going to make another one, and I feel like that's.
I feel like he's running himself out of the business.
Yeah, maybe so, but it's like sorry, but I thought a lot about Tar when I was seeing the Brutalist, and I thought it would be a goddamn shame if whatever happened with Todd Field goes on with Brady Corbet, and he's not able to sort of continue at a clip, or if it takes a decade between films and he only makes 4 films.
I think if Todd Field said, I'm willing to fight 10 men naked to the death in order to direct my next movie, somebody would give him an opportunity. But he just seems to be one of those guys. Maybe I'm completely misinterpreting his public comments, but he seems to be a little bit of a sourpuss, or maybe his own worst enemy. Wildly talented. Tar was fascinating, but I don't get the feeling that he has this overwhelming need to make another movie. Whereas there's some directors where, like Ridley Scott, he will die on the set with like a bullhorn in his hand and a riding crop in the other.
Todd Field also has the most random non-movie side story about his personal life, where I'll just say he doesn't need to work, and his next generation won't need to work either, which isn't a criticism. Shout out, I aspire to do
but it
that.
does hurt your motivation.
It does.
A little starvation is a good motivator.
Speaking of personal too, just something to mull over. It's like, since he's been directing and doing interviews, Brady Corbett makes a point to bring up the fact that he was a single mother raised person, and like he loves his mother very much. And I knew this before going into. I know him personally because I'm friends with Lodge Carrigan, and Lodge and Brady are friends. And it's like the minute Van Buren talks about being raised by a single mother and all that stuff, I'm like, this isn't a coincidence. Like this has to be a deliberate thing about the character. So
it's also cool that he's learned at the feet of so many giants, like working with Greg Araki, working with Lars von Trier, working with Michael Haneke. I mean, it's like he's worked with so many good filmmakers. It's like that's the best film school on the planet Earth. He's been working as like a really cool character actor for all these years and learning a bit as he goes. And obviously, he's been paying attention.
I will say too, I was curious. I looked up his filmography and I was like, oh, he actually hasn't acted in quite some time too. I hope he doesn't. I get it, making something like The Brutalist and even Vox Lux. Those are huge tasks. but it's like it'd be nice if he kept acting. I hope I don't want him to pull a Jordan Peele where you take yourself so serious that you had this talent doing something else. Because look, at this point, I'm not trying to insult the man and say he's up so far up his own ass, but like Jordan Peele is a funny human being. Like he literally Mad TV, Key and Peele. But he said he doesn't want to act anymore.
Arguably the funniest sketch comedy show of the 21st century, and is a huge part of that. And he's just neglecting that side of his personality.
Right. The episode that when he was on Workaholics, it's like Jordan Peele is really funny. I wish he would just do straight up comedy. But going back to Brady Corbett, I hope he doesn't completely write off.
Jordan Peele, if he wanted to, could be another Mel Brooks and make comedies in which he appears.
Thank you. I'm glad somebody said that. Exactly. So, but anyway.
All right, well, Jonathan James, it was your number 1 movie of the year. We'll give you the final word on the Brutalist before transitioning into your number 8.
Yeah, it's 3 or 4 of my movies that I have in my top 10 I watched in the last 24 hours.
Nice.
And this was a movie I absolutely wanted to squeeze in before I went and made my final list. And I was not expecting it to enjoy it as much. I mean, Bill, I was sort of live texting you. You weren't texting during the movie, maybe just during the vape break in the middle. But I had a sense that it was going to be good. I was not expecting it to be as enjoyable or as thought-provoking as it was. I think it's one of the most cynical movies I've seen in a long time. I think some of the symbolism towards the end, it's basically like, people that are looking to religion for hope in the world are looking in the wrong place. So I loved it. I loved everything about it. Cynicism, whatever. It struck a chord with me. So
we embrace the dark side on this channel.
Yes.
All right. So what is your number 8?
So my number 8 is Pictures of Ghosts. This is a documentary. I don't know how many documentaries or
you just stumped Marcus for the second time. I saw him give me like a little double take. So it's like, wait a second, I'm the guy who brings up the weird, obscure movies, not you.
So I'm going to totally mess up the director's name, Brazilian director name Kleber Mendonça Filho. And he did Bacurau and Aquarius.
Oh, well, Bacurau, I know that was a semi-big hit organically when it came out. I remember that.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I didn't actually realize that he was the director of this until in the movie starts referencing some of his other movies. Anyways, I did not grow up with video essays as one of my favorite genres, but I did a podcast episode years ago on Sans Soleil, the Chris Marker video essay, and just absolutely fell in love with it. And this movie definitely runs in that same vein, although it's a lot more personal. It's essentially a movie that is about ghosts and memory and films, and specifically about an apartment where the film director grew up and filmed a lot of his movies, and how it's changed over time, I think, in recognition or honoring his mother who had passed. But then also builds into it the major movie theaters in, again, I'm going to mess up the pronunciation, the city of Recife in Brazil, where there were these massive movie complexes. Sort of reminds me of Roma when they go to that massive movie theater in Roma. Apparently in the city, they had like 3 or 4 major movie, thousands of seats. You could go and watch American films, international films, Brazilian films, and they all closed. And so he goes back and he shows video of the spaces where these theaters were. And I think as somebody who's like horrified and terrified that the great movie theaters of Boston and New York City and LA are all going to disappear, probably like I'm overreacting. Lost
the Ziegfeld.
Oh, like the whole it freaks me out that one day the Brattle is going to disappear, or film at Lincoln Center. Neither are any danger. They have like huge amount of money, but I still have these irrational fears, and so this movie definitely spoke to that.
And do you speak any Portuguese, or do you have to read the subtitles when watching Brazilian films?
No, I do not. I do not speak.
I took
any
Capoeira for a year out in LA, and I had these little CDs while I was trying to learn how to speak Portuguese, just so because everybody that was in my class spoke Portuguese. So the only sentence I can remember learning from the CD was "A senhora sabe onde fica o hotel," which means, "Does the senora know where I can find a nice hotel?" But for whatever reason, that one sentence is stuck in my head. But anyway, sadly, Beto, my teacher, he would be very disappointed that all my other Portuguese lingo has slipped my mind since 2006.
Maybe I have the wrong impression of you, but I feel like if any time you learned a foreign language, it would mostly be to talk to women and get them directions to your hotel.
Or how to order beer, like ein kleines Bier bitte, and things like that. But anyway, yeah, I took capoeira for a year. I got my green cord, and I earned the nickname Formija, which means ant, because he said, like an ant, I like set about a task until it was completed and I learned something. So that was my brief exposure to Brazilian culture. Well, any final words on that before we move on to number 7?
This movie's going to pair well with another one of my selections later, and a movie that is not on my list. I'm not going to pronounce Dahomey.
Dahomey.
Yeah.
That was an honorable mention. That was an honorable.
And you caught that at NIF, correct?
I did. Yeah. It's on HBO Max now, and it's actually, I think it was IFC. It got a theatrical run, which is odd because the movie's less than 50 minutes, so it's weird to kind of try to sell that theatrically. But yeah, it got a theatrical release, a short one, but.
Gotcha. Well, we're up to lucky number 7, if my memory serves. Who would like to throw out a selection for our viewing pleasure?
Well, that was Brutalist for me, so we can skip right past this one.
All right, skip right past Brutalist for Mr. Scurry. All right, Mr. Penn, number 7.
The Substance.
Nice. I got a clip, and I wanted to show the dance scenes, but there's so much goddamn music, I kept getting flagged for copyright. But I found a little snippet with no music, which I hope y'all will enjoy. All right, The Substance, lay it on me. That was my number 5 in my top 10.
Number 3.
Nice. All right.
Nice. Yeah, this is another movie where, like, sure, it's not perfect. It has its problems, but no matter what, it really did kind of swing for the fences. In my opinion, I thought like they really went there, and it was like, on one hand, having an actress like Demi Moore in the movie is on the nose, but then having her go so far out of her comfort zone, you forget it's like, oh, Demi Moore's doing this. Wow. You know, at her age to still do something new. Yeah,
she's like 61, 62 and looks awesome.
Yeah, looks awesome, but doesn't mind putting on this weird makeup and prosthetic nonsense and really going for it. It's like, you know, shout out to her. And
it's a much more interesting role than the crap she was doing in the late 80s and early 90s. Like, you know, like, I mean, Indecent Proposal was a hit, but I'd rather watch The Substance.
Agreed. Yeah. I've watched this movie a few times already. It's really good. I think, you know, unfortunately, I'm someone when I like a movie, I get really into it. I start listening to podcasts and interviews with the director. And I do think that the director, Coralie Fargiat, is, I think she thinks that she's making this new radical statement about, hey, when you're an actress and you age, it gets difficult. And it's kind of like, yeah, we get it. We know.
Yeah. Every actress since the days of Greek theater is familiar with that.
Right. You know,
tried and true tale.
But that aside, again, because this movie was just so odd at times that it's like, yeah, the good just so outweighs the bad. And even though this is very much like a female-centric story, I think Dennis Quaid was the highlight of this movie performance-wise. Once again, this Far From Heaven, when he does stuff that's like not what you expect, like playing he's done some of the most stereotypical that a guy like Dennis Quaid looks like Dennis Quaid would do. The quarterback in Any Given Sunday. He's in a bunch of westerns. He's a pilot. He's this, but when he does like these roles that you don't expect him to do, he knocks it out of the park. And I think he's really good. He's really funny, just genuinely odd and awkward and funny. You know what I mean? And it's one of those things where Lynchian gets thrown around a lot. And this is a movie that took a lot from Lynch, the director's own words.
Like the Lost Highway shots, like the close-up, or like the mouth.
All of it. Yeah. All of it. And if you want to go to Pinland Empire, I got about 70 comparisons that I've done. You could probably do 700. But that character is almost like a guy that you would see in the Twin Peaks universe. Like the character he plays is so Twin Peaks that it's, so yeah, The Substance. I loved it.
Marcus, quick note: turn your computer just like an inch one way or the other. I'm worried that the Wrong Reel logo. There we go. The Wrong Reel logo was starting. I don't know if you can see it or not. Was starting to obscure your image, and I just want to make sure that we can see all of you. But John James, Mr. Bill Scurry, thoughts on The Substance? Because as I described it in my video, it was almost like a DJ was taking requests, and I was like, what I would like to see is something like, and boom, they delivered it. My only knock against it, excessively long, and I think it misses the emotional peak where it probably could have ended with the big confrontation in the apartment without going to the award show part or the New Year's show. But otherwise, I fucking love the movie. But what did y'all think?
I didn't put this in my top 10 or even my honorable mentions, even though this is so up my alley. Fargiat's Revenge would have been in my top 5, but I love all the French New Extreme is my jam. I love, Raw. I love Titan. I like this. I like some of the, the older portions of the genre. Anyways, I love all that stuff. However, the second ending or the third ending it was just too long. It totally lost me, and it didn't.
Should have been 90 minutes.
Yeah.
I think it's 2 hours and 20. And I don't mind a long movie. Brutalist is long, but it earns the length.
When it's not
I thought that
necessary.
the substance overstayed its welcome.
When you think of I put aside the typical stuff, Cronenberg, Lynch, John Carpenter, all that stuff. I was like, when you think of stuff like Freaked or Brian Usna's Society or Reanimator, like all those movies are like 90 minutes long, and they got the point across. I kind of wish, and I guess that's my only other criticism of the substance. I wish it was 100% goofy and didn't try to like seep in little social commentary. If you just made that movie and you're goofy, like the social commentary will just deliver itself, but it was a bit on the nose in a way
like
that
when critics are
saying
saying it's a primal scream against unrealistic body standards. It's like,
right,
Margaret Qualley and Demi Moore are both beautiful. So it's not unrealistic. They are walking, talking, beautiful women.
That's a very good point. Exactly.
It's not unrealistic. They live, they breathe, and so on. But I love Margaret Qualley. And Bill and I were talking about this last night. We had drinks with Chica Leo over in Brooklyn. And on the way out, we we're talking about Margaret Qualley's career. She had a banging year with like Yorgos Lanthimos and Drive Away Dolls and that sort of thing. I mean, Margaret Qualley showing excellent taste and has the courage of her convictions.
Yeah.
I thought this movie. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, John.
I just want to finish off. For body horror, for French New Extreme, there's nothing scarier than Dennis Quaid eating shrimp.
Right.
Grotesque. Yeah. The sound effects and the teeth and the glop. Yeah, it was fucking foul.
I love the fact that, Revenge was great. I watched Revenge after I saw this thinking, I got to see what this woman is up to. What did she do? Where did she come before this? And I really like the fact that this movie did not at any point try to make me feel guilty for perving on both of their naked bodies. It's like they are slamming looking. Sorry, Becky. Here I am talking about women's bodies.
She doesn't like that word. There's some word.
Like it. I know.
We did a naughty 90s nostalgia episode, and there was some word you kept using, and she was like, "Oh!"
Slamming.
Every time you said it, I had to
yeah.
turn it off. Yeah.
But I mean, the camera lingers on every single inch of their nude bodies, and it's a female director. Again, taking all this into account, I absolutely was on board with the message about how brutal it is for women to be beautiful, and whatever goes on in Elizabeth's brain that she continually opts for this horror because it's worth it just to sort of prolong her time in the spotlight to have this opportunity. But I loved how gross it was. I loved the Grand Guignol fire hose of gore at the end was great. Did not think it overstayed its welcome. I thought that in addition to exactly being hilarious, my favorite scene was Demi Moore preparing for the date she never goes out to, and she's putting on makeup. She can't fix herself enough to where she thinks she's attractive anymore. And Demi Moore nails the idea. You're watching the time pass, and she leaves, and she comes back, and she leaves, and she comes back. It's such a well-directed, well-edited scene.
Well, like Goober's texting her so helplessly about such good intentions, but I
mean, it's dialogue free. It was great. It was great nervous filmmaking and just real psychosis. And again, the fact that you nailed all the goo and the spine splitting open and yellow fluid everywhere like it's Stuart Gordon, and then this thing winds up being one of the best scenes in the movie. It's just a human face in the mirror, just conveying what it's like to just feel this hard revulsion of your own flesh. By the way, Marcus, did you know who the original cast actor was instead of Quaid in this part?
No, who?
Leota, but he died.
Wow, that would have been just that. He oh my god! Oh, I kind of wish I didn't know that.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh man.
But it's funny. It's a weird thing where what I was reminded of a little bit watching The Substance was when movies like Kill Bill Volume 1 and 2 came out, where the people who knew the movies that it was ripping from were like, well, the movie's fine, but I'd rather just watch these spaghetti westerns or these kung fu movies or these Japanese revenge films because those are the originals. I worry that over time, The Substance might fall into a similar trap where people will say, well, The Substance is very entertaining, but I'd rather just watch Lost Highway and The Fly and all the movies that she's clearly taking inspiration from. So at a certain point, she will have to escape the shadow of Lynch and Cronenberg. And if you're going to borrow from anybody, borrow from Lynch and Cronenberg. They're fucking incredible. But
she'll get there easily. She's so skilled. Of course she will do it. I mean, she's just showing off now. Don't worry. She can do anything. This woman's a marvel.
It also must be nice because both her and Julia Ducournau, who directed Titane, Cronenberg made a point to say that he liked both films, both The Substance and Titane. So it's like they probably have to be doing like backflips. It's like, oh man, the guy that I openly admit, instead of being like, because there's been cases where a director is like, wait, I influenced that. I don't want anything to do. It's like there's these like rumblings of like back in the day when Hal Hartley found out that Kevin Smith really liked him, he was just kind of like, oh God, which is so sad when you think about it. It's like really sad. It's kind of like.
But given what Kevin Smith evolved into, Hal Hartley was right.
Right. But at the damn, that is true. Jesus Christ. Yeah, no, that's true. Fair enough.
He saw the writing on the wall.
That's true. Yeah.
When Titane came out and Cronenberg was coming out with his movie around the same time, Viggo Mortensen came out and was like, guys, I think it's great that you're giving all this money to Ducournau. But also you do realize we do have the original David Cronenberg here. Somebody give him some money too. But
still alive.
Yeah.
But he's got his latest movie, The Shrouds, which I saw at New York Film Festival, which is coming out in a couple of months. So there was a period before Crimes of the Future, the feature, not the short, where he was struggling to get a movie off the ground, but he made a couple movies that seriously underperformed. So I'm just glad that there are like a new wave of directors is coming along that's helping a younger generation of movie fans discover Cronenberg. Because I feel like right now, you can make a case that David Cronenberg is more popular than ever because people are like really just taking in that entire body of work, which at this point is like 55, 60 years worth of movies if you include his shorts from the late 60s. So,
which I hate because look, Crimes of the Future I like for incredibly personal reasons, and I think that God, what's the Russian mob, Eastern Promises has like really great moments, but it's like post Spider, he hasn't been the Cronenberg that he was. And it's weird when I first moved to New York, you meet people that it's like history of violence is what got people into Cronenberg. And it's kind of like, huh? You know what I mean? Like, cool. It's not bad, but it's also just weird that it's like, this is the movie that made you a Cronenberg fan. I mean, I guess. But I was, when you were talking about Cronenberg's latest, I was giving a thumbs down because The Shrouds, I just didn't like it.
I liked the first half and then it kind of, anyway, we'll return back to The Shrouds when it actually is out in the theater.
I was going to say this time in 2025, it'll get mentioned, not in praise, but I'm going to bring it up. So it's bookmarked. So in a year. So.
Well, we're actually going to pause right now for our first little break because Bill, you mentioned Becky Deanna earlier. Well, I have a surprise for all of you. Becky and I, we were recording recently talking about her film that she really liked called The Beast. But while I had her, I was like, well, you know what? Why don't you record a little greeting for both Bill and Marcus? She didn't know at that time that John James was going to be on the episode. So I actually have a little 6-minute interlude, which I recorded. And I might, since I've already watched it and edited it, I might sneak off for my first little pee break. But without further delay, here is the great Becky Deanna with a little Christmas New Year's greeting for Bill and Marcus.
All right, Becky, you got me up in the middle of the night to tell me that you've got some serious shit talking that you need to do with Mr. Scurry. So now you've got me. It's time to deliver, the ultimate killing blow to Bill Scurry. What is it that you would like to tell him in this little surprise clip?
Oh, hi, Bill. No, I feel like last time I was on here with YouTube for the Comic-Con video, I kind of called you out for for saying that Edward Furlong wasn't great in T2, but I feel like I'm always talking about you, but no, I love you, Bill. You're the best. And hi, Marcus. You're the best too. But I just want to say, because Bill, I know he didn't love The Beast and he really struggled with it. And it was really sweet how he reached out to me and he's like, can you tell me why you love The Beast so much? Because I just don't get it. So I wrote him this gushed about it for 2 paragraphs and then he just didn't respond. I think because he was like, I don't know how to respond to this because I freaked out about how much I loved it. But I know Bill didn't like it.
Overwhelmed him with sheer unbridled intensity.
Yeah. And sometimes I'll love a movie and he'll check it out because of it and love it too. Sometimes he doesn't. But I just think he and I are just probably opposite ends of The Beast. He just doesn't He just didn't love it, which I have to say, Bill, you're wrong. No, I'm just kidding. You.
He is also an enthusiast for Dune, to which you were, let's just say, indifferent to its appeal.
Yes, so I was. I thought.
Do we need to have a recording where you and Bill have a proper smackdown?
Yeah, could we just have like a debate about like which film is better? I think between Dune and The Beast, that The Beast is the one in that film that will be in 20, 30, 40 years is the one will be remembered, and not Dune 2, but that's just me. But I know Dune on a cinematic, like in a cinematography point of view, and it really was a great filmmaking, but I do think The Beast will be remembered. And I'd like to say, Bill, if you do get an opportunity, I don't know if you saw it more than once, I would see The Beast again. I think you will, like I said, it gets more profound with each viewing, and there's so much stuff in it that I think that you'll actually like it more. But I also do want to say I haven't finalized my top 10. There's a few movies left I want to see, but one film that I absolutely love that is definitely going in my top 5, and right now is at my number 2 spot, is the movie which has got an unfortunate title, which is called My Old Ass, which is a film directed by a female director named Megan Park, and it stars Maisie Stella and Aubrey Plaza, and it is absolutely wonderful. It's just one of the most life-affirming films I've seen ever. It's wonderful. And I don't know if any of you have seen it yet. If you have a chance, it's streaming on Amazon now.
I prefer death affirming movies that make you want to kill.
Have you seen it, Jamie?
I have not.
Oh, okay. Yeah. It's a movie that I just thought had an interesting premise. A girl is right before she goes to college. She gets on shrooms with her friends as like her last hurrah. And she ends up being able to see her future self 20 years in the future. Aubrey Plaza is her future self. And she ends up having a relationship with her future self sort of in this movie where she gets to talk to her. But one of the things I just want to say is that this film, I wasn't prepared for it, but I literally broke me. Like 3 separate times in the film, I was watching it and I just completely started bawling 3 times. And I wasn't expecting it. I wasn't prepared for it. It just moved me on a level that I didn't foresee.
So hypothetical question. Let's say summer 1998, I'd convince you to take some shrooms with me, and future Becky Deanna, high-powered executive Sony, came back to visit intern Becky Deanna, summer 98. What would you have told her at that time if you were the star of My Old Ass?
Oh my gosh. I would have said, Jamie's one of the most amazing people, and you make sure you stay friends with him forever, because like I said, you make me feel like a plant that's been
like
watered.
a natural woman.
Yes.
You make me feel.
No, you know how, like I said, Marlene Dietrich said that about Orson Welles. You do make me feel like a plant that's been watered when I get to hang out with you, Jamie, or talk to you.
Well, right back at you, sweetheart.
But no, I think one of the things I would have said more is that keep seeing movies and that don't lose your passion in films, which, I don't, but also that you're going to have, that it's going to be, the movie business is tough and you're going to be surrounded by people who might not love movies as much as you, but don't let it get you down. Probably what I would say. But yeah, I don't know. What would you say to yourself if you got to see yourself after a racquetball session with me?
I would say learn how to edit earlier. It's something you're going to be doing a lot of, and it'll be a useful tool. I always tell that when I'm talking to any kid who's like a college kid, I'm just like, think of yourself as a gunslinger. Which weapons do you have in your toolkit or your gun belt? You need a lot of weapons in your holster. So don't just be, I'm going to work real hard. It's like everybody works hard. What do you bring to the table? So that's the advice I would tell.
That's a good one. Yeah. And I just think the film, it sneaks up on you. It's really, it's a really powerful film. And I hope more people seek it out. And that's one of the reasons why I'm going to put it in my top 10 list. Right now it's at number 2, but again, I have like 5 or 6 movies that I think have an opportunity to push it out of that spot. So we'll see. But I can't wait to hear all your top 10 lists. And I just want to say, I hope you have a wonderful new year. And I love all the Wrong Reel community followers, and thank you for continuing to engage with me online.
Thank you for continuing to engage with us. And with that, we're going back to our regularly scheduled broadcast. Boom. All right, Scurry. What is your retort to
No,
the
no,
defense of the Beast? Are you ready to throw down, or you just want to talk some trash about Eddie Furlong?
Look, the Eddie Furlong thing, I'm not going to argue that point. I tried to smooth that over in back channel chats with Becky. No, I really did ask her about it because I had the exact opposite watching The Beast. I was a little mystified and befuddled by it. I did not see the wonder, but I was so inspired by the fact that she saw all this there's a spectrum of color in it that I just didn't see. I wanted to hear her talk about it more. And I haven't watched it again. I'm not going to watch it again for a little while at least. I need. It's long. It's a long movie, and I need some time. And I hope to appreciate it. And what I wanted to catch her enthusiasm for it, sort of have it be communicable. And like that's the whole thing about what we do here. All this Wrong Real family. I feel like I've been given the gift of so many great movies by suggestion from smart people who have a lot of passion. And so if somebody gets behind it, that's why I'll watch a movie like Post Tenebris Lux, is because Marcus introduces it and says you got to watch it. Or Martin's
saw
movie,
Super Vixens by the great Russ Meyer.
Yes, exactly. And Hard to Be a God. I wouldn't have seen these movies, like if Martin hadn't sort of put his back into it for years. That's the whole point of doing this. And so it's not even disagreements. It's honestly, I just want to catch excitement from other people, and it works.
I gotta say, I think I'm America's biggest Bertrand Bonello fan, and I really didn't like The Beast. So Becky, we I guess we like
shots fired. All right, so lay it on me. Give me your hot take on The Beast.
I just, and again, I'm coming from the perspective of someone who has been defending Bertrand Bonello for like 2+ decades, and this is when I can't do it anymore. Between House of Tolerance was the last movie of his I really liked. Then he made the Gianni Versace movie. Jesus Christ, the Yves Saint Laurent movie, and then Zombie Child, which I did not like. And this movie, it just kind of went on forever, and it was just like, not to sound like such a basic B word, but it was like, what is the point of all that? What are we doing? I looked at my watch so many times. I ran into John at the screening that I went to, and then when we were at the screening, I got a text on my phone, and it was Rob Cotto, who was outside, who could see me from inside the theater. So that's just kind of a nice little New York City movie culture moment. But I just didn't like it. But I'm open because Bertrand Bonello is a filmmaker that I'm such a big fan of. And this has been happening a lot, where a director makes all these great movies and I'm a fan, and then finally when they break through, it's with a movie that I don't like, and now suddenly everybody likes it. This happened with Kelly Reichardt.
It's like when a band gets popular, like, yeah, but the music sucks now. Yeah.
It's like Kelly Reichardt and everybody calling First Cow Kelly Reichardt's best film, and I'm like, what? What are y'all talking about? Or you know what I'm saying? So this has been happening a lot to me recently, and Bertrand Bonello is the most recent example. I think Leo Carash is another example where he was this like French staple, this like son of Godard type person, and then Annette comes out and it becomes this like meme-ified film because it's got Adam Driver in it, and I'm like, this movie is terrible. Why does everybody like this movie? So it's just kind of my villain origin story of like all my favorite directors get popular with a movie I don't like, which is so cliche, but it is what it is.
John James, are you going to come to Becky's rescue, or are you going to join the dog pile? Where do you stand on The Beast?
No, I saw Becky recently in LA, and I conveyed to her how much I disliked The Beast. I don't know if it's Marcus and I saw it at New York Film Festival. I don't know if it's that movies kind of suck in Alice Tully. I don't know what it is, but I just really did not enjoy it. I actually like Nocturama.
It's not Alice Tully. It's
I'm
oh my God. You like to see this? Is what I'm talking about? Oh boy. Okay. Fair. let me not. It's your opinion. You like it. Fine. Whatever. I'm not gonna do that. But go ahead.
But I did not enjoy The Beast. I am definitely going to rewatch it. So we're gonna have at least 3 rewatches based off of Becky's spirited defense and advocacy.
I mean, Becky, we've never which is crazy to say after all this time, we've never podcasted together. If you want to do
we can
I know a Bertrand Bonello episode would be fun because I'm well versed in his cinema. He's done some interesting stuff over the last 21, 22 years. So,
all right, Becky, it sounds like the battle is going to continue, and we'll save the Eddie Furlong debate for another day. But I think at this point we were up to John James number 7, if memory serves. So what do you got for us?
My number 7 is Nosferatu.
Oh, beautiful. I tried like a million different clips. They all got flagged. Sadly, I have a Nosferatu clip. That was my number 4. Anybody else? Did it pop up on anybody else's list?
Yeah.
Scary?
Honorable mention. Honorable mention.
All right, lay it on us, Mr. James. What did you like about Nosferatu?
Yeah, I don't want to turn this podcast into like one long inside storytelling session, but Bill and I saw Edward Scissorhands this weekend. And that was actually when it was unveiled to me that I would get invited onto the show. So very exciting. But I was watching Edward Scissorhands and I was like, yeah, this is great. This is like what movies used to like. You used to just go to the movies and you would accidentally walk into a movie and you'd think the movie'd suck or you would never hear of it. And you'd see an actual movie on the screen. And my movie going experience for like my AMC movies have been very, very hit or miss, where a lot of the times I'm just like, this is not a movie. This is a video game or an advertisement for toys or just a CGI
or
extravaganza.
Just clips from movies from thousands of years ago that they're just digging up and recycling, like Alien Romulus.
Yeah, and honestly, Alien Romulus is probably better than average compared to some of the other movies I've been seeing. So to walk into Nosferatu and to sit down and to be hit with like, oh, this is like when I went to go see Tim Burton movies in the movie.
And we should acknowledge it's
clue.
not the first, but the second remake of a movie that's 102 years old.
I mean, Nosferatu, different variations has been made and remade, many, many times. Herzog did his version. I think there's another one like Shadow of the Vampire or something.
Which is about the making of the W Murnau.
And this is like a pretty faithful-ish adaptation, but definitely its own flavor, definitely has its own plot points, its own stylistic perspective. And like I'm referencing Tim Burton movies, like I'm Sweeney Todd. I had no idea what to expect when I went to go see Sweeney Todd in the movie theater. I did not know I was going to see it like 3 times in a row. And those same sort of that impact of walking into a movie and seeing like an actual full movie where there are human beings that are shot in a place and it has like it has art production that makes sense and brought me into the movie.
Former production designer, that helps when you're the director.
Yeah, Eggers is a talented guy, and I'm not saying I'm 100% or even I'm probably 50% on Eggers at this point, but it doesn't matter. This movie totally hit for me, and I'm just like pleased as punch that people went to go see this. And so he's going to get another opportunity to get something like a $50 million budget again in the future.
Yeah, The Northman underperformed, but this movie's, at least initially in its opening weekend, doing some very healthy business. And it only cost $50 million to make. And the question now is, does he retreat back to the A24 world of movies like The Lighthouse, or does he allow his budgets to go up and try to go the Nolan or Villeneuve route? If he has his style and he's got his fans, can he be a commercial filmmaker that's bigger than Nosferatu? I don't know. Like I don't know anything about his ambitions or what his goals are. But what I liked about Nosferatu is how it took some ingredients from Murnau, some ingredients from Herzog, and in some cases went back to Bram Stoker's Dracula, the actual novel, in terms of like the description of the actual physical person. And I was like, all right, so he's given us his favorite ingredients from all the different sources while at the same time leaving his fingerprints all over it. And I'm just thrilled that there is an audience out there that still loves Gothic horror and is having a great time at the movies. And yeah, it's a Christmas present to all the horror freaks out there.
I had just one small bit of counter programming, and it's ironic because I thought Lily Rose Depp was great in it. I thought she was actually the strongest performance. And a friend of mine had suggested she kind of pictured what it would be like if Olivia Cooke had been in the role. She's not the biggest fan. I'm like, I think Lily Rose Depp came to play. I think she's really got, building up on whatever she did with the Idol. She leveled up, and I think that Robert Eggers directed the hell out of her in this movie. I think that the casting of Bill Skarsgård is unimaginative. That guy is getting these big roles. He has sort of a very creepy draft as a member of the Skarsgård family. The makeup was impressive on it. I just sort of feel like when you whip that guy out to be it, when you whip that guy out in the movie Barbarian, like he
and
is
the Crow and all kinds of crap.
Yeah. Well, that yeah, right. It was also he did that first person like action movie earlier in the year. I think it was. I can't remember what it was called, but yeah, it's like I think that the guy, ironically, for a big tall dude who wears a lot of makeup, plays intense roles, I think he lacks charisma. There's something in his performances he doesn't have. I did not like his Count Orlok. I thought they could have shot a lot harder or higher or weirder. They could have found an actor who was not Bill Skarsgård because he's just so damn deadly obvious. He's not.
What if they had let Willem Dafoe play it again, who had already played him in Shadow of the Vampire?
What? It would have worked, but it's like, look, it's one thing when you keep giving Doug Jones these latex roles because Doug Jones can make prosthetics dance. He's a master of physical movement and clowning and all these things. And, he keeps coming back to these Del Toro roles where he's playing, goopy man lizards. And that's great. It's like, I don't think that Skarsgård's got the game for that. It didn't ruin the movie, but unfortunately, that's what sort of got it dinged out of the top 10 list, just sort of relegated to the also rans of the year.
Let the oldest brother play Nosferatu. They already worked together.
Alexander. Yeah, Alexander.
He's another guy outside of the Northman and I don't know. It's like
Infinity Pool.
Or let Stellan Skarsgård lose a little weight. He could probably still
even
play.
Stellan. No, but Infinity Pool was. I just think he's a guy. It's like he's a big guy. Let him play that. And I guess the younger brother is also. But you're right. I actually didn't really like the design, no matter how accurate it may have been. I wasn't a fan of it. I don't know. The mustache threw me off too. Even though I get it, the original Dracula had a mustache, but still, it just didn't work here. And there's going to be
the Skarsgård families. I'm always wondering, what must their gatherings be like? One of my favorite interviews with a celebrity ever was in Stellan Skarsgård was talking about how he doesn't like talking about movies or watching movies. He's like, well, when I'm on my downtime between movies, I prefer cooking and fucking. I was like, that's very blunt and direct. But anyway, I was like, I'll keep that comment in the back of my brain. I think Stellan is the most talented of all of them, but I thoroughly enjoyed Nosferatu, and I just thought it was great seeing Focus Features remind people that movies don't have to be $200 million or $2 million. Mid-range movies are actually kind of getting a second lease on life right now. Between The Complete Unknown, which was shot for 70 for Fox Searchlight, and now Nosferatu shot for 50, is the mid-range film kind of making a sneaky comeback? Because it's been a vanishing species for many years, but we seem to be getting at least a handful of them right now.
And thank you for shooting on location or on a location. It doesn't always have to be on a green screen. And I'm sure there are economics behind all that, but it is one of the best special effects in the world is to see Prague or to see Transylvania. Like that's good enough.
Yeah. Let somebody get on a horse and ride off into the country. I mean, like Herzog shot his Nosferatu for like $5 and it's still, he managed to make it soar. Just put a little Wagner music in there and just pan the camera up and you're transported.
Herzog used Delft. Delft still looks like that today. I mean, you can find corners of Delft that look like the 19th century. That's why it worked.
Yeah. All righty. I think we're up to number 6. Mr. Penn, lay it on us.
This one's definitely out of left field a little bit. It's a One More Shot with starring Scott Adkison. It's an action movie, and this actually ties into my best of 2021 because the film One Shot was in my top 10. If you want to go back and listen to that episode. This is the sequel to that film, and it's an immediate sequel because the movie takes place seconds after the first one ends. It's the first one you have. Sorry, I have to cough here. Hold on.
Cough away. I've got a cough starting as well.
No, I have a mute. In the first film, One Shot, Scott Adkins is tasked with getting a hostage out of enemy territory. And in the sequel, he sort of succeeds, but now he has another level. Like, these movies are like video games. It's like, so in the first movie, he manages to get the hostage, but now there's a whole other level, and he's in another country now, and there's people still trying to get him. And now we have the addition of Michael Jai White. And, for those that aren't big into the GTV action.
Dynamite.
But Scott Adkins and Michael Jai White, they're like best friends in real life. They've done like 6 or 7 movies together. They have so much chemistry. Outside of them being in front of the camera, they're both fight choreographers, legitimate fighters. And at this point, they've been in movies together for almost 20 years. So when you get this like fight scene between them two, it doesn't disappoint because they've been fighting on screen for like 20 years. It's a fun movie. It's all made to be done in one shot, which is hence the title of these movies. It's definitely, in the realm of that, Extraction. And I like the Extraction movies, but this is a lot better. So I highly recommend it.
If you ever want to learn how to throw kicks with some insane power, Michael Jai White has some Taekwondo videos online, which some present-day UFC fighters will call and say, yeah, I learned how to do my spinning back kick by watching Michael Jai White tutorials online and that sort of thing. He's a legit martial artist and a total fucking stud, and has a great sense of humor. Yeah, anything with Michael Jai White, I'm down for it. And I haven't even heard of this movie, so yeah, I look forward to.
And he's in his mid-50s, which is crazy.
Yeah, but still a
He's
total
really
fucking
young.
stud.
And that's what I'm saying, right? Exactly. Yeah.
All right, has either Bill or John seen this film?
No, never even heard of it.
Gotcha. Well, it's on my to-do list, but Mr. Scurry, I think I skipped your number 6. What do you got for us for our number 6?
Hey man, we're all good. There's no order here. We're doing our thing. All right. My number 6. Yeah. No. Substance is number 3 for me.
Or the Brutal. Something was number 6.
Yeah. No, Brutal. Yeah. So far, I've had repeats from the Brutalist and Substance. But 6, I loved Love Lies Bleeding, Rose Glass. This movie was just so much fucking grim, dark fun. It was lesbian psychodrama. It was Ed Harris in a stringy ass wig looking like the Crypt Keeper. It was almost looked like Barry Sonnenfeld photography from Blood Simple.
It totally felt like a late 80s, early 90s thriller in a lot of ways, in a good way.
Yeah. It was the desert. It was the treachery of the desert. It was the sort of the idea, like as Joe Pesci said, a lot of holes in the desert, a lot of problems in them holes, This was of a piece with, it was in conversation with like a lot of other great noir. However,
like Red Rock West and stuff like that.
Yeah, man. The fact that Kristen Stewart again comes in with her fucking heat. It's like there kind of is like no job she can't handle adroitly. She really is able to throw fire in these movies, and she's different. I mean, I think people, if they're not watching closely or if they're just not paying attention to what she does, she's got great taste, and she picks fantastic projects, and she's different in every one of them depending on what is needed. But the secret weapon in this was Katie O'Brien's body. Like, women are not allowed to get yoked for some reason in movies, or they haven't, and it's like, man, you know what? Katie O'Brien was in Ant-Man 3 and it was terrible, and she was flat and there was nothing there for her. This thing, it's like she was unhinged. Rose Glass got in there. Wow. I mean, yeah, it's obvious that she was a cop before she became an actor. She's like a physical person anyway. So she went on the creatine, she went on the HGH, who the fuck knows? But she got vascular, she got cut, she got swole.
She needs a professional wrestling or an MMA movie, and she would be fucking incredible.
Agreed.
Yeah, fighting with my family, something like that along the way. But yeah, and it's like then the weirdest thing about this movie at the end, there's a magical realism component, almost like a giantess, almost like a sexual fantasy. It's like it's a weird kink thing that there's like subreddits for, which, I mean, again, it's not quite on target for that, but it's adjacent to that. I just thought it was so much fun. It was just watching Rose Glass ramp up from St. Maud, which was good. It's small. Yeah. It was very, very British, and this is very different. And it's like to be able to come to America and just sort of like play in that noir Cohen sandbox just so well in your second feature film. I think it's her second feature film. It augurs for a really good career to come.
And
now somebody pushed back on my review when I said this is a movie where everybody seemed to be competing to have the ugliest haircut in the movie, and they all won. Do you resent that accusation that the three of them were all deliberately uglified? But I enjoyed the movie quite a bit. But it was Trey Rouge, as my stepdad used to say, when he came across somebody who was a little bit redneck, when they have like 7 different haircuts at the same time. And yeah, I think they were deliberately leading into those aspects.
It looked like the desert is just filled with dispossessed people who are hiding.
I ain't got none. So
I thought that was the whole point. Going back to what you said earlier. Rose Glass wasn't even born in the 80s. She wasn't even alive, but managed to I'm not going to say she fully captured, who does, but so often when a movie is set in the 80s by like a young person, it's really what they're emulating is like the early 90s. Like they it's like windbreakers and neon this and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, that's more 1991 and also a weird romanticization of 1991. I remember the 80s fairly well, and I remember like ashtrays, everybody smoked. It was like murky and
ashtrays in the armrest on airplanes with dead old cigarette butts from like the
exactly. I remember that, and like there was wood paneling and like orange carpets or brown carpets, and this
station wagons everywhere.
When I look at photos that I was in that took place in the 80s, everything looked like there's just like a layer of grease over stuff, and this movie certainly kind of captured that. So yeah.
How come it didn't do well? And I'm a little mystified as to why like kind of the art house crowd or the A24 crowd didn't more warmly receive it. I think it did a little bit of business, but when I saw it, I was like, this movie's gonna fucking launch, and it just never really happened. So what are your theories as to why it just kind of failed to resonate?
Came out in February. It was that kind of graveyard period, I think, where movies, just like these next two Marvel movies that I'm looking forward to seeing, both Captain America and Thunderbolts, Thunderbolts. Those are coming out in February, so it's just like
the Thunderbolts is coming out like in April or May, but
Captain America, yeah, it's like
Dumpuary. It's coming out in Dumpuary.
It's not a good time for. Yeah,
Jamie, there's a very dedicated, hardcore, sort of like culturati among lesbians. I'm friends with some of them even too. And this is the kind of movie that is so super niche because it is, it is the pleasure, the languorous gorgeousness of the female body through the eyes of a woman who loves the female body. I think it hits the target so squarely that it might have been difficult for people of smaller minds to sort of punch through. And I think that, to be fair, I think
Drive Away Dolls underperformed seriously as well. And that was written by a girl who's into women.
That wasn't nearly the equal, of this movie. Drive Away Dolls
was like a generation gap where like she was writing about kind of the lesbian experience in the 90s, and a lot of younger girls who were born in the 2000s like, well, that's not my understanding of the world at all. But like I enjoyed both movies. Admittedly, I'm not a lesbian, even though I've watched a lot of lesbians on pornography. But yeah, I was mystified when both movies failed to find an audience. I was like, all right, well, they're serving you up red meat, but you're not going.
Yeah, good question. Yeah, I don't know either.
John James, any theories as to why these movies failed to connect?
Oh, I have no idea. I know that it connected with. I was at a small independent theater in Atlanta, and there were probably like 10 or 15, as my friend Sophie would call them, baby dykes that were there, and they loved it. And they really made the movie watching experience for me so much more fun because they were very interactive with the film. So it was a hit in the theater that I saw it at.
Yeah, I remember joking at the time. I was like, you honestly could make a double feature out of. They were both in the theater at the same time. You could make a double feature and just have like a 4 or 5 hour lesbian extravaganza. But for whatever reason, for reasons that are beyond my fragile understanding of the universe, they didn't resonate. But I did enjoy both of them and gave positive reviews to both on my channel. All right. Well, I think, Mr. James, we are up to your number 6.
My number 6 is Radu Judah's "Do Not Expect Too Much from the End of the World."
A favorite of Brett Easton-Ellis. I love his film podcast. He's been talking about it all year. I have not seen. I started it one night. I was too tired, and I ended up like turning it off for like 20, 30 minutes, and I failed to circle back to it. So give me the God's honest truth on this, because my understanding is that it fucking rules.
Yeah, it does fucking rule. It's basically Alinka Manolaka. No idea if I pronounced that right. Manolake, I think it is. A Romanian actress who has done a lot of work with Radu Judah. And this is political. It is maximalist. It is a joke a minute, and it's edgy and crass and mean-spirited, and it's amazing.
And I remember it being a little gross. Like, she's telling a joke at one point, like, what does the blind man say when he enters the fish market? Hey, girls. And I was like, all right, you're speaking my language when it comes to the grotesque humor.
Well, so I didn't so the movie split up into 2 parts. The first part, which is the major part, is this woman driving around Bucharest, and she's doing small odd jobs. She's basically an Uber driver, but she also works for part-time or as a PA for a company doing corporate video work.
Yeah, and she interviewed Yui Bowl at one point.
Yes, she does. She interviews Yui Bowl, and she also has a character. And I found out that the actress really has this character. It's a Snapchat filter where she basically is pretending to be like an Andrew Tate misogynist. And she's not, but she really leans into it. And so then in reaction, like all her really, really liberal friends, and she's really liberal, but all her liberal friends are pissed off at her because they think they're playing. And anyways, it all folds into the movie. And then it builds to this really depressing, brutal, long, awkward joke of a scene at the end where I won't say too much about it to avoid spoiling it. But it's like a 47-minute, I think it's a single shot. And really plays into just how cruel sort of the film industry in certain places can be, and taking advantage of workers and all of this stuff. Anyways, so all of that sounds a little bit,
grim
boring
and
or
heavy,
staid.
but apparently, anyway, Bret Easton Ellis is a certified film fanatic who hates 99% of every movie that he watches that comes out these days. It's the only movie from 2024 where he's ranted and raved about it at length on multiple episodes.
I left at so many things that I felt guilty about laughing about in the movie theater, and everybody else was laughing along with me. So yeah, it's definitely a great film. Check it out. I don't know if it's still on the short list for international feature, but yeah, it's. I hope more people get to see it. I don't know if enough people saw it.
And what's it called again?
Do not expect too much from the end of the world.
Okay, I'm gonna see that also.
Yeah, this is a wrong reel first where Marcus Penn is getting confounded with obscure movie
I don't know
references.
what this is. Yeah.
Fatherhood has shut you down. You're not throwing out as wide of a net as you once did.
That's like half the reason. Yeah, it's my son.
You're watching Despicable Me 4.
We go to, oh God, we go to, he liked Transformers 1. I like Transformers 1 also. We go to, we're going to take him to see Sonic. But yeah, a lot of it's just like being tired and other stuff. I cram, there's like little like quarterly points where now at this point I cram and see multiple movies in a short period of time instead of just all the time throughout the year. I don't have.
But those early movie-going experiences, he will cherish them later on. I can remember going to see Raiders of the Lost Ark, Conan the Barbarian, all kinds of great movies in the theater with my dad. Like, adults are tired, adults are overworked, adults are distracted, but the kids are energetic and bright-eyed, and they're just soaking it all in. You're giving him memories he will cherish for decades.
He acted out half the movie. Like we went to like 11 a.m. where like we knew no one would be there because our son is he's an active little boy. So yeah, he was running around and acting out the scenes, and yeah. So for his first theatrical experience, I'm happy with Transformers 1 for him. So.
All right. Now, have we gotten through everybody's number 6? Are we in the back 9 now?
Yeah.
All right. Now we're into the really, really juicy movies. And if at any point any of y'all need a break or like a pee break, water break, whatever, I've got my wrong reel pee break 2-minute timer ready to rock anytime. I'm good to do y'all need a break or y'all want to continue?
Let's go.
All right. So number 5, who's got a good one?
Marcus.
All right. Hometown Pride, Janet Planet.
All right.
I got a lot of shit for my basic reasoning for liking this movie. So let me just this time lead in with, this is a very good movie. And I'm a sucker for good coming of age movies. I think that, not right now because it's so new, but 5 years, 10 years, whatever, if someone were going to be like, hey, I'm going to do a double feature with Janet Planet and 400 Blows, or Janet Planet and Welcome to the Dollhouse, if you want to do something more recent, which also co-stars an Amherst alum, Eric Mabius, it would make sense. Now, all that stuff out of the way, the basic stuff of I like this movie a lot. Yes, this movie quite literally, there's a scene where this is the road you take that you would go to my house in Amherst, or there's a scene where it's like, this is our mall. This is our mall that, the good mall, the dead mall was across the street. There's a lot of paths and hiking points and all kinds of stuff because with the exception of UMass and like downtown, Amherst is really woodsy. It just kind of is when you go to someone's house. It's like, how did you know to make a left or a right there? It's like, you just kind of know. It's just, it's very woodsy. And, full disclosure, I grew up with, it's not like we're friends. We're friendly, but my classmate, Annie Baker, is the one who directed it. So there's, a lot of pride there. And I'm just, I keep talking about, this is such a great year for Amherst. My buddy Eben won an Emmy for his role in The Bear. And, you know what I mean? And this just kind of, watching Janet Planet was like a culmination of all my hometown.
Does Amherst do like a film festival or anything like that? Or?
No, but at this point, man,
they should invite back all their luminaries.
Right, between like, and we have two huge, Uma Thurman is from Amherst, and, Ilan Mitchell-Smith, who, by the way, he hasn't acted in a long time, but it's like, hey, man, Weird Science, one of the 2 stars of Weird Science is from my hometown. So I think, that's going to be cool. Yeah, and then Wyatt is from Amherst. So it's also just, it really does capture Amherst. It's like, it's super modern hippie. Like that's one of the main things. John, I'm not going to force you to agree, but it's like Amherst is so hippie. It's just like sandals and hacky sacks and people with ponytails and like white people with dreadlocks. It's just that kind of place.
All right, so I'm not going to force
yeah.
you to take a stand. Where do you stand on the issue of white boys with dreadlocks?
It never looks good, and they're never kept well because that type of hair usually isn't meant to look. I mean, the term locks aren't just owned by black people when your hair locks, and any type of hair locks, but dreadlocks, yeah, they just don't look nice. And I grew up around people that had them, and it's like there's usually an odor to them. They're not maintained well. But also, being from the liberal hippie town that I'm from, who am I to tell people what they can and can't do with their hair? Do whatever. So, but
yeah, I would never tell them what they can or can't do, but I will freely make fun of them from a distance for having lice and weevils crawling around on their scalps.
Pretty much, yeah. Like certain kids I went to school, like if you sit, I mean, you sit in rows in school. Whoever sits in front of you, I mean, you literally can smell sometimes. It's pretty bad sometimes. So
yeah, and I had a big like Jesus mop parted down the middle, straight down to my shoulders, and ponytail to the middle of my back. I am very guilty of having gross, greasy, matted hair that was uncombed and unkempt. So I'm not immune to that phase. I just wasn't curly enough to ever really lock up. But even at that time where I had the ponytail, I was like, dreadlocks of white guys suck. But anyway, if you have dreadlocks and you would like this channel, I apologize. You are welcome to enjoy this channel. It's just we're all having a little bit of fun because I have no hair to speak of, and so I just get jealous.
And again, for like half of my reason for liking this movie, because it's like, oh, it's not just, oh, this is back home, but it was made by somebody from back home. It's like somebody from New York or Chicago or LA. It's like, well, I'm from here and I see these monuments all the time. It's like, yeah, that's kind of my point. It's like you're from a place where there's like millions and millions of people. Like Amherst is not a big place. So to see certain monuments that have such nostalgia
That's why I like Hellraiser 3, Greensboro, North Kakalaki, baby. It's one of the oldest movies ever shot there. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Nice.
All right, Mr. James, where do you stand on Janet Planet in that you are also from Massachusetts?
I haven't. Yeah, I haven't seen this yet. It's popped up on many lists and was something. I think this was at Sundance too, but it wasn't a movie that I got around to see. But now that I know that it was shot in Hadley and shot in Amherst, I will definitely check it out.
And Northampton. Yeah, those are three, and Leverett also. Yeah, all those places. Yeah.
Which, by the way, anybody that hasn't visited Western Massachusetts, out by that way, Northampton, Amherst, Lee, if you want to go really far west, and
that's super west.
Yeah.
Oh, that's basically that's almost New York. Yeah. Yeah. Western
cool.
Mass. Yeah.
All right. Well, either Mr. Scurry or Mr. James, give us your number 5.
Go for it, John. Take it.
Evil Does Not Exist. Ryosuke Hamaguchi. Yes. Yeah. Bill, did you have it on your list?
Honorable mention. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is yet again one of the movies I've seen in the last 24 hours. So as Marcus was saying, sort of squeezing in a bunch of movies I had on my to watch list in the very last minute. And I thought that it was a very interesting exercise in that, like, what is the name of the book? How to Get the Cat Out of the Tree? Like the ticking clock. Sorry, well,
so Save the Cat, is that what it is?
Yeah, Save the Cat. Yeah. The idea that a movie, in order to get you engaged and to move things along, should have this like ticking clock where you're waiting to see something to happen. This is the most zen ticking clock of all time, but yet, nonetheless, when you see the handyman who's the main character of the story, when you see him chopping wood in the snow, all you can think of is what is going to happen with the chopping wood. And then when you see his daughter running around, you're thinking, oh no, like what is going to happen? And I'm not going to give any spoilers, but it's all of the things that I expected would happen sort of happened, but in the most surprising and beautiful and tragic ways. And so seeing a movie that is exactly what you would expect and in no way, shape, or form what you would expect all at the same time deserves a spot on my list. And so that's why I put Evil Does Not Exist at number 5.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Bill, any words on Evil Does Not Exist?
Yeah, this is the same director who 2 years ago did Drive My Car, which, a lot of people did see that. That made a big art house splash. And I mean, he directed 2 movies that year. He also directed Wheel of Fortune and Fantasy, which I did not see. I only saw Drive My Car. So it's like, yeah, John is like indicating this is kind of for the beginning of it, it's almost like that Yasuhiro Ozu level style of dispassionate line readings. There's a lot of procedural coverage of like zoning boards. Like there's a big dramatic scene that takes place, and essentially they want to build a luxury camping site next to essentially a hippie village, and the people are afraid of the water becoming contaminated. And so there's real estate, the powerful real estate entities from Tokyo are coming in and trying to like essentially snow job this thing through. And these citizen farmers are trying to dig their heels in. It's so mannered. It's so, perfectly Zen Japanese that, it gets in these zingers. It almost winds up being ridiculously funny by the time the meeting is finished because it's so passive aggressive. And it's playing on the idea of the Zen, the idea that the Japanese behave with one another. Like, you just sort of calm down. You don't throw a fit in public because that's just not how you behave yourself. And again, he's intimating to something at the very end, which is a Looney Tunes bonkers ending, which I still don't know what happened at the very end, but it's a shock. It sends you to the credits and like just this weird fugue state a little bit. Everything about this movie was intentionally designed, and Hamaguchi. I'm curious, like where this guy goes. Will he continue to make these movies that are championed by Western Anglo film nerds because he seems to be catering to the right audience?
I just want to say, too, it has the best PowerPoint joke I've ever seen in a movie. There is a PowerPoint chart, and the guy goes, "Bring up the PowerPoint." And he's saying, yeah, you see, glamping is growing. And what actually has happened was glamping grew, and then it actually started shrinking, and he just kept the trend line going until infinity, and they don't say anything. And it's just one of the best visual jokes I've seen in a while.
Yeah.
Artie, Mr. Penn, any strong feelings on this flick?
It's an honorable mention. I've been meaning to go back and rewatch it, but I like this filmmaker a lot. Yeah.
All right, there it is, Mr. Scurry, number 5.
All right, we're in the game now, man, because we got Conclave, which I loved more than Jesus could possibly permit. This is Edvard Berger. I didn't see that he directed All Quiet on the Western Front, which I did not see.
I did not see that either because I had read the book and I'd seen the Lewis Milestone movie, but I'm thrilled now to have joined the Edvard Berger fan club because I also thoroughly enjoyed Conclave.
I mean, fucking Christ, every cell, every erg of this movie was just designed to emulate the adaptation of the airport bookstore paperback of yore, and it's filled with these red meat actors. Lithgow is great. Ralph Fiennes is great. Tucci is great. The guy who plays Tedesco, the Italian heavy, the Bond Senior, he's great. The English Nigerian actor who plays the guy that they wind up forcing out, he is incredible. He was from Gangs of London. That's where I saw he was in Gangs of London. Thrones. Oh, that's right, in Game of Thrones too. And I loved every minute of this. I just felt like I was in the hands of a master. The idea that it reminded me. Matthias showed me after this. We watched the Shoes of the Fisherman, which was an Anthony Quinn Pope movie about the election of a pope. I think it was from 1968, 1969 thereabouts. And it's like this was the sort of like they used to make movies like this for our grandparents, and we loved them, and we were grateful to get them. And this was just superb.
Well, what it reminded me of is that old expression where people say that great literature usually gets made into bad movies, but trashy international thrillers usually are ripe for great adaptations into really entertaining movies. And I felt like, I totally agree. It was a return to form where you walk into an airport bookstore, you throw a dart, hit that bestseller. Ooh, that's a provocative topic. Let's make it into a movie. And it worked, and the audience is still there. And I loved seeing like some of the reactions to people, like when like the old people finally got off their couch after like 4 years of terror about COVID and went back to see Conclave, and people were getting like lost in the theaters and unable to find their seats, and people were complaining online like, this old guy's been standing up for 15 minutes and he won't sit down. But I was like, you know what? Embrace it. They're going back to the movies, and we need their business just as much as we need the business of the youngins. But yeah, Conclave, I was gloriously entertained by it, and I thought it was a marvel of great studio filmmaking because most of it was shot at Cinecittà. It was not shot in the Vatican because the Vatican did not approve of the movie. I was like, well, goddamn, I've been to the Vatican. You fooled me.
It was a great looking Sistine Chapel set. That was fan-fucking-tastic.
Yeah. Marcus or John, did y'all see Conclave?
I haven't. I was going to chime in. So I've been to the Sistine Chapel. I for a semester in school, I was in Rome long time ago, and I loved it. No, but it's one of those movies that just kept coming up. I didn't have a chance to see it, but I have not heard a bad thing about it. So
I'm an atheist / Protestant who went to Boston College for grad school or more specifically for law school. And so when we had the conclave for when Benedict got elevated, we were obsessed. We were, following all the articles and everything. So this is the first time I hadn't seen in the Shoes of the Fisherman.
Yeah.
I hadn't seen that film, so this is the first time I see the movie about Conclave. And for the first 80% of the film, I was like, this might be my favorite movie of the year.
Yeah.
And then the ending came, and my eyes rolled so hard, I could not. I couldn't put it on my list with my eyes rolling that hard. So that's my take on Conclave. Propulsive for 80% of the movie.
I didn't include it in my top 10 either, but I included it as a strong honorable mention, and whatever Edvard does next, I will definitely be first in line. But cool. Quattro, what do y'all got for me?
Hard Truths, Mike Lee.
I've got a clip. Letting her rip in 3, 2, 1.
Look at you. Fix your face. You're dealing with the public, handling people's food.
Stop. Please.
Oh, you can pipe down and all standing there like an ostrich.
All right, Marcus, lay it on us. What is the gist of Hard Truths?
Just a sad, sort of angry at life woman dealing with the people around her and how they kind of deal with her as well, which is, depending on your circle of friends, can be relatable. Like, I think sometimes we can't help it because some of us are related to people like this, or we have friends like this, and sometimes it's just like, oh, Jesus Christ. Like, it's just that kind of person, you know what I mean? And it makes, because she's the central character, so it's a lot of like, oh my God, you know what I mean? And let me be clear, the movie's very good, but like a lot of Mike Lee films, sometimes it is a task to sit through, not because of the length or anything, but just because it's so like, just heavy on your chest. It's like, God, it's like a Mike Lee movie could be 110 minutes and you might need a little bit of a break, because it's like, I need a break from this character for a second. Like, God damn, you know what I mean? But I do mean that in the best way possible. Marianne Jean-Baptiste, who, by the way, she's on that weird list of actors and actresses who was like quietly an Academy Award nominee, but it's kind of like, wait, for what movie? For a Mike Lee movie. And it's like post Secrets and Lies, she just kind of would pop up in certain movies, or like she'd be on a television show that wouldn't make it past 2 seasons, so it's nice that they got together. Like, this is the equivalent of like, this director and this actor, they make this one dynamic movie together a long time ago and they never worked together again. I'm like, oh, they're coming back. It's like if, Denis Lavant and Claire Denis made a film together again after Beau Travail, after all these years. So it's nice that she's going to get a look for this. I wouldn't be surprised if she got nominated for it. Not that that matters, and not that validates this performance, but still, it's like she should just be in more movies.
I saw it at the New York Film Festival, and for like the first 30, 40 minutes, the audience was just screaming with laughter with every comment she made, especially sitting at the dinner table, just berating her son and berating her husband. And every time they kind of open their mouth to speak, she just, steamrolls right over them. It's a powerhouse performance, but the movie, obviously, it's a little melancholy and a little sad toward the end. And you could just feel the room getting very, I guess, like, not moribund, but you could just feel the kind of the energy deflating. Mike Lee's he can be a tough set. I mean, a movie like Naked, you're like, Jesus Christ, it's like getting just like slapped in the face for like 2 straight hours, but you're loving every second of it. Naked is my favorite movie by Mike Lee, but I'm just thrilled that he's still active and making visceral, dynamic movies that people seem to be responding to. I was
gonna name drop Naked. This is almost like a little more tame female version of Naked, where it's like this character that just alienates people around them. And the fact that at this point in life, you should even be happy that there's still people around you that like you and care about you, and you're still being a shit to them. But you brought up another good point. This is a dramedy, especially like you said, the first half. Like, there's some funny stuff in this movie. Like, I want to be clear. Like, I know I brought up this woman. She's sad and lashes out at people, and even that clip you showed. But it's like, it's also kind of funny at times. So Yeah,
Yeah,
Mary
she can
John
talk some shit, and people who know how to talk shit properly are entertaining.
Yeah, I also have to say, not to always make stuff about race, but there's like certain black filmmakers who are always like propping up and praising certain actors and actresses, and it's just like, why, especially if you're a producer director, why after all these years you've never looked to her for anything? I'm just saying, I'm just throwing it out there. It's like, again, I can't stress enough how she should be in more movies. I mean, it's kind of crazy to think this is like the first major role she's had since like In Fabric. And In Fabric was also kind of like a smaller film in itself. And even before In Fabric, she was mostly on television. You know what I mean? And I'm sure she's a pretty known person in her home country, but she really should be as much of a star as someone like her could be. She's just such a great actress.
And I like the actress playing her husband and son as well. I mean, the story of the son and how he doesn't get out all that much, and his father comes home from work and he's like, "Did you go outside today?" And but he basically lies on his bed playing with airplanes, or if he goes out, like bullies give him shit and that sort of thing. It is a very sad movie in a lot of ways. But John or Bill, did either of y'all see Hard Truths?
No, I don't need to be told to go see Mike Leigh movies, but for some reason it's always like the thing I forget to see. Yeah, I'm a big Marianne Jean-Baptiste fan. She's exactly the kind of actress. And this performance, the way you're describing it, sounds like Eddie Marsan's driving instructor from Happy Go Lucky.
Yeah,
which again,
another great.
Yeah, a complete rip. And it's like Mike Leigh loves essaying these miserable bastards, and it's like tough it may be, but also incredibly authentic and like thrilling. This is what it sounds like. So now I haven't seen it yet, but I'll get to it at some point, I'm sure.
It has a bigger release post January 9th. But it had a couple of small theatrical runs.
Yeah, I don't think it's even come out in the UK yet. I think I was listening to a Mark Kermode interview, and I think we're about to see the movie get the recognition that
it didn't hit Holland yet. It's not in Amsterdam. It's another reason I wasn't able to see it before the holidays.
Gotcha. All right. So where are we in the? Has everyone done the number 5 or 4? Where are we?
No.
Are we on number 4s?
Yeah, that was my 4.
All right.
That was his 4.
Somebody else, give me a movie to talk about.
All right, I'll take my number 4. One of my favorite movies of all time is 2004's Alexander Payne, Sideways, and a new inheritor to that mantle came out this year in A Real Pain by director, writer, producer, star Jesse Eisenberg, who has control over a very delicate, fine instrument in this movie. And I thought that the camaraderie, probably off camera, the chemistry between Eisenberg and Culkin is incredible. Kieran, to be specific, Kieran of the Culkins, the Culkin clan, exactly. It had just like I said in the correct Alexander Paynian proportions of things that looked honest, things that were farcical, things that were humorous, things that were sarcastic, things that were subtle, things that were big. I think that he really Jesse Eisenberg. I know he's directed a few films. This is the first one of his I've seen that he directed. I mean, acting. He's been acting for a long time, but it's like he kind of saved all of the things he got right in this movie. I think everything worked. Everything was smooth. The idea of setting this in Poland, it was a heritage trip between two cousins who sort of they grew apart as they get older, and they're both in their early 40s, and
they're basically visiting like concentration camps and things like that, are they not? Or?
Yeah, it's where their grandmother ran away from the pogroms and the Nazis, and it's like they're trying to push the lost history of the family. The Polish Jews left; they reestablished themselves in America, and it's like let's try to put a better face on this and death and destruction. Let's actually give some sense of the great Jewish traditions of Poland, which of course there are very few Jews left in Poland. It's almost like a painting rather than something that's alive and moving. But what I love that Eisenberg did in this movie is that Kieran Culkin is rivened by emotions. He's rivened and racked by these feelings, and he acts out. And he doesn't go through the trouble or he doesn't try to essentially lay it out and tell you exactly what's going on. Kieran Culkin gets to describe this behavior, and you as the viewer get to sort of wonder and try to parse what is going on inside this guy's head, because Jesse Eisenberg is also trying to do it too. His character's trying to figure out what's going on as well. But I mean, again, if it wasn't so funny, if the moments of cringe didn't work so well next to these sort of Jesse Eisenberg bawling, breaking down in front of his cousin, where he's also racked by sadness and grief and propriety and all these things. I just loved how it was just this great human adventure from a really talented, competent filmmaker who seems to be running at full steam now.
It's in a weird way, Kieran Culkin, I liked him so much on Succession that he's become kind of a victim of his own success, where he was so good on Succession. If I see him playing a role that is at all reminiscent of the character from Succession, I'm like, I can't go there. I went through 4 seasons with you and I loved it, but I almost feel like Kieran Culkin, I'll never be able to watch him in a movie or show ever again unless he's like speaking in gibberish or pig Latin, because he can't do that character again for me. So that's why I stayed, rightly or wrongly, I stayed away from it because it seemed to be too similar to what I'd already seen with Succession. But Mr. James, am I being too harsh or just a total dick about Kieran Culkin?
No, I guess I feel the opposite, where I really want to see this movie. I had tickets to it a couple of times, but didn't get to go because I liked Kieran Culkin so much in Succession. Now I'm like, hey, if you're going to deliver the Succession character again, if you're going to deliver Roman Roy, I'm good. So yeah, no, I will definitely check this out, and Bill has been hyping it up for a bit, so I'm excited to see it.
Very cool. All right, so where are we? Are we at John James number 4?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have Dune 2.
All right, yeah, I got a clip. Let's let her rip.
May thy knife chip and shatter. May thy knife chip and shatter.
All righty. Bill likes this movie. I like this movie. Marcus, do you like this movie?
Not really, no.
Becky was very indifferent to Dune Part 2.
Yeah, let me say indifferent. Let me say indifferent. Because it's like you can't make something like this and be like, whatever. But at the same time, I guess more the source material, it's not my thing either, so I'll bow out.
All right, well, John James, now it's the time to go to war with the great Becca Deanna. Make the case for Dune Part 2, a movie where she was numb to its allure.
Yeah, so first I'll just say my list sort of skews the big tentpole films this year. Like I've got another one coming up later, and I think there is, again, just a part of me that when I go to see Dune 2 in IMAX in Lincoln Center at the AMC, and it's filled with people, there's just a part of me that act makes my heart sing a little bit. And
did you have the sandworm popcorn bucket?
Oh, I fucking wish I did. Yeah, no, I didn't. I just thrilled by the entire experience, and that first time where Paul Atreides rides the sandworm, I just
great scene.
Along for the ride.
Slowly rising up, and then that shrieking whale kicks in. I was like,
the hair is standing up in the back of my neck thinking about it. And went back to the movies and saw it like a week later. And the only movie that I saw in the movie theaters twice this year. So when that happens, you have to put it on your list. Made me go and read the books more. And so Denis Villeneuve clearly is knocking it out of the park. This movie, unlike the first one, which I think was still basically in COVID, or was like right after COVID, and
was
people were a little
fall
skittish.
Of 2021 or fall of 2022?
Yeah. No, 21.
I think it's the first time I was in a movie theater that was packed, but it was still clear that people were skittish about it, and they were released it on HBO Max. I think it was still HBO Max at the time.
Day and date, yeah.
It was day and date, and so a lot of people just stayed at home and watched it. And so it didn't make all the money that Warner Brothers probably wanted it to. However, this movie made a killing, again, making my heart sing. They're now going to bring out the third film. And I just thought the desert scenes, the politics, Butler as Fade Rhaetha, I just thought everything about it. I loved it. I like the David Lynch version quite a bit. I know Bill does. I've heard him podcast on Wrong Reel about it. Yeah, this is everything I could want and more. And this is another movie where similar to like Nosferatu, I didn't like all of the performances in this. I didn't like all the performances in Nosferatu. It didn't matter to me. The material is so rich. Villeneuve is so in control of his directorial powers. The focus on minutia and the world by paying attention to small details like the way that feet move in the sand, the architecture of the shots and the geometry of it. Yeah, I love this movie and just totally got off on it.
Bill, where is it in your top 10? 2. dose. Yeah, for me, it was my number 3. So Bill and I have discussed this movie at length, both movies, and 1984 and Jodorowsky on numerous occasions. But Bill, get in there. What about all these, like, I guess now 10 months later, what about this movie still sticks with you?
Yeah, like John says, the idea that, I mean, even though they blew the worm ride in either a featurette or some footage that they had leaked before the movie came out, and that was them really, Warner's sort of was like trying to goose that earnings, which it worked. That was a good push, get people excited by putting this sort of balls out action out there, and it didn't ruin it, because when I saw it, even though I had seen it already online because they put like six minutes or so, that scene was incredible, man. That scene was nuts. Look, this is designed to be watched like, for me, the Lord of the Rings extended editions. This will be, I'm only going to be able to watch both of them together. There's no point in not watching all 5 or 6 hours of these movies back to back. It's going to stick the landing because it almost begins where the first one ends. But I thought for sure Chalamet was going to butch up between these two movies. I thought he was going to put on some muscle weight to show the fact that Paul Atreides has aged. He's been dried out by the, desiccated.
He'll be a twink till the day he dies.
He did not put on a single pound. He did not get vascular. He didn't do any of that shit. And you know what? It did matter, because he, like when he was yelling in Siege to Bar, when he was commanding them at the end, getting them on board by asserting his godhead. That's a scene that, Kyle MacLachlan had a great scene in 84, Lynch. But this is like a completely different ballgame, where he was commanding these people, these withered old desert faces with their tattoos and their sort of like vaguely Middle Eastern looking affects and their means. And he held sway. And it's like, what the secret weapon of this movie is? I would not in a billion years have thought that Villeneuve would use Stilgar as sort of comic effect. But it's like, I think you said it in your year-end wrap-up, Jamie, is that, he was soulful, he was hilarious, he was human, he was fatherly.
Yeah, and it's not a particularly funny book, but it was a welcome comedy, because this is a very serious interpretation of the material. So just having him saying like, "Oh, that's exactly what he would say," he would deny the fact that he's the Lisan al-Gaib, and like, anyway, Javier Bardem, I think you would have to hit him in the head with a sledgehammer, knock him unconscious for him not to deliver a great performance. But he is fantastic as Stilgar.
And Butler, essentially, we were sort of future casting for the longest time after the first one came out. It's like, how would Fade Routher be introduced? What would his arc be? Who would play him? What would he look like? What, it's like, and I did not picture that Austin Butler would essentially imitate Stellan Skarsgård's growl. He would almost like be a junior version of his perverted,
he's imitating him. But I've like a lot of people, I first saw him as Tex and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and I'm as real as a donut. But I liked how he's impersonating Stellan Skarsgård very accurately, and that's what you would do. Like if you're working in a corporate structure with like a powerful tyrannical ruler, people like David Geffen apparently used to do this thing where in the meetings he would let his eyelids kind of close halfway, that people found it to be very intimidating. But everybody who worked for him was always trying to master that expression, and it makes sense that Fade would take notes from Baron Harkonnen.
Yeah, I mean, it's just I agree. I agree with whatever I just said. It's an incredible movie, and even though Lynch may still be my favorite because I just essentially grew up with, that was practically a father to me. That movie, it did more raising than both my parents did. This is just an absolutely stunning achievement between the two of these movies. He kept his eye on the ball and he nailed it.
Yeah, my only real knock is Anya Taylor-Joy as Alia. I can't stand what they did with the character. Give me the weird abomination, the little girl with the memories of all the Bene Gesserits. And just embrace the weirdness and let Anya Taylor-Joy play her in Dune Messiah. So I thought they kind of chickened out of that. And I remain intensely annoyed that there are basically no Mentats in the story whatsoever.
Yeah.
A little dash of them in the first, but to neglect the Mentats is like almost as bad. It would be the same as neglecting the Bene Gesserit or like the friggin'
fucking Spacing Guild, Jimmy. They neglected the Spacing Guild, the actual guys who fought
the Spacing
space.
Guild. And
yes,
so,
exactly.
Yeah, it is Denis Villeneuve's interpretation of Dune. But the good news is, Dune's right here. People can read it anytime if they want the full experience. It's not going anywhere. It's hanging on the wall of the Louvre, and it'll always be up there. And I imagine that book will be in print for the next 600 years. Mr. James, any final words on your number 4?
No, like I said, just excited to see part 3.
Absolutely. My reservation about part 3, though, is that you can't do part 3 without also doing Children of Dune. And so I hope Denis Villeneuve will recognize you can't just do Dune Messiah in isolation. You have to go right into Children of Dune. And then at some point, maybe when he's like 75 and completely stark raving nuts, he has to come back and do God Emperor of Dune.
Well, Warner Brothers could certainly use the help. I'm sure if the sales, if the grosses keep being like Dune 2, I think they would support that.
And as we're seeing in Dune Prophecy, only Denis Villeneuve knows how to do this world. Dune Prophecy has been a fucking nothing burger of a show. It's a fart in the wind. It is so bland, so boring, and there's so many people that are talking themselves into liking it just because there's Dune in the title. People are just slaves to goddamn brands. Like, oh, it's got Star Wars in front of the title, so it must be good. No, if something's got Dune in front of the title, then your expectations should go up, not down. But that's another topic for another day because it's time to move into the top 3. Mr. Pinn, what is your number 3 on our list?
This is kind of an oddball pick, but it's Conor O'Malley's Rap World.
All right. I'm unfamiliar with Rap World, which should come as a surprise to nobody. Lay it on me. What is Rap World about?
It's a day in the life. It's a found footage film, day in the life of these slightly older gentlemen who are still trying to make it as rappers. It's a comedy, by the way.
Does it help that I saw rap in the theater in the 1980s?
No, it doesn't. Because these guys essentially, they're like losers. Like these guys are like 29 pushing 30 in this like Pennsylvania suburb trying to be rappers, rapping about stuff that they didn't live or experience, and just other funny stuff happens. For those who don't know, Conor O'Malley, he's 80 Bryant's husband. He's on I Think You Should Leave a lot. He's on Joe Parrott Talks to You. He's kind of I really hate this term, but like this term like anti-comedy. He just does a lot of weird stuff, but he's on TV a lot. Again, like I said, he's associated with
the kind of comedy that generates applause but not laughter.
No.
It's like Greg Turkington. It's like Greg Turkington kind of thing.
It's Tim and Eric stuff. It's Greg Turkington. Yeah, it's Neil Hamburger stuff.
So it's weird and off-putting, but not guffaw.
Eric Andre. Think about that.
Now, to be clear, that's just what he's associated.
But Eric Andre does make me laugh out loud like a fucking maniac.
And well, if you like Eric Andre, you'll like my number 2 movie. But I was only saying all these reference points because that's what Conor O'Malley's associated with. This is a very straightforward film. It's beginning, middle, end. It's a plot. It's not surreal, but Conor O'Malley's just kind of associated with that world. By the way, if you don't watch I Think You Should Leave on Netflix, you're missing out. But the best that I could compare this movie to, it's like imagine any Harmony Korine film, specifically Trash Humpers, but made by someone who wasn't a cynical bastard, somebody that was genuine, someone that doesn't think they're better than everyone, and someone that doesn't think that, someone who's not bored. I think that's the issue. Like Harmony Korine's last 15 years, these movies from Trash Humpers up through Aggro Drift comes off as someone who, I guess there's talent there, but it's like they feel that they're so bored that they're just going to throw something to the wall and see what sticks, and it usually doesn't. Whereas this guy, he's weird and he's into a lot of weird comedy, but there's nothing like hipster cynicism, mean-spirited about it. He's totally, everything is out there, and he's all in with comedy. He's not a jerk. He's not an asshole. And it's on YouTube for free if you want to see it. It's on YouTube for free. It features a lot of, it's one of those movies too, when you watch it, you're going to see a lot of people that like, oh, maybe I saw them on like a viral TikTok, or maybe I saw them on a viral Instagram skit or something. A lot of these people seem to know each other that are in this kind of like surreal comedy world. So Rap World by Conor O'Malley. It's on YouTube for free. And it's definitely my sensibility. It's my type of sense of humor.
Marcus, you like Corey's, right?
Maybe. Keep listening, and we'll
okay.
You see how much I liked it. You see how much I liked it.
Okay, all right. I hear you.
All right, Mr. Scurry, what is your number 3?
It was a substance. So we covered that already.
All right, yeah. I wish I had a Margaret Qualley gyration clip, but yeah, the music is too inflammatory for the copyright people out there. But it's funny, after The Substance came out, people started talking about this old show on HBO from the early 80s that was exactly the show being satirized by the Margaret Qualley show, where it was just girls doing aerobics, but like rubbing their butt cheeks together and just rubbing the nipples together. But it's like, this was a show, but like it actually was like in 1983 on HBO, and it's wildly entertaining. But Mr. John James, what is your number 3?
Yeah, I saw a fun fact the other day that Baywatch was the most watched television show of all time. So definitely that entire genre
I believe it.
of TV.
That's worldwide.
much
That's
loved.
worldwide, I'm sure.
Like
Yeah.
even
It
Saddam
had to
Hussein
have
was
been.
watching Baywatch. Like, yes, this is quality entertainment.
I was, and then Baywatch would have a couple of like wrestling crossovers, so I was absolutely tuned in.
Bring it on. Absolutely.
Anyway, yeah.
Wrestling coming to Netflix starting in January every Monday.
Yeah.
Oh,
I do not know if I can do a segue between any wrestlers and my number 3, which is La Chimera, which is Boliche Rohrwacher's. I'm learning German. I cannot do the German R, so I'm not even going to try. She's an Italian filmmaker, but her family's German, so her first name is Italian, her last name is German. Anyways, so this movie is another movie that stars Josh O'Connor, who has made another appearance in my list. And here he's like a very poor man's Indiana Jones. And so he's a British grave robber, essentially a grave robber, who gets involved in like this international network that's stealing Etruscan artwork in grave robbing. And him and his criminal cronies are very much the low people on the totem pole in the criminal hierarchy. But he is like this totally haunted figure. Isabella Rossellini also appears, and she plays his dead girlfriend's mother, I think it is. And she lives in this palazzo, and the palazzo is run down, and he shows up, and it's another movie that deals with ghosts of the past and all this Etruscan artwork. Etruscans, of course, famously, basically, you can't find any Etruscan literature because the Romans destroyed it all. So it's this people that had this really rich culture that was essentially destroyed. And this guy is totally haunted. He's haunted by the ghost of his ex-girlfriend. He's haunted by the things that he's done and that he's doing, and the things he's never going to achieve. And he's haunted by, I think, actual literal ghosts of the people that he's robbing. I've only seen another one of her films, Happy as Lazaro. That was also on my top 10 the year that it came out. I've liked all her movies so far. Very much like the poor Italian experience. This is not like La Dolce Vita Italian experience. This is very much like the plebeian version. And yeah, I just got a total kick out of this, and found it very beautiful, very haunting, and a movie well worth checking out.
yeah, I've seen it on a million top 5 and top 10 lists. I have no excuses. I think I had an opportunity to see it at NIF. I think I had an opportunity to see it in the theater here in New York. I don't know why I didn't go, but did anybody else see this?
That Précis sounds fucking awesome. I want to see this movie.
Yeah.
Well, then nobody can go to war with you on your hot take. What is it? Take your word as gospel.
It's the way I like it. It's the way I like it.
All right. So number 2, Deuce. Who wants to throw down with their number 2?
I think Bill, did you say your number 2?
It was Dune. Number 2 is Dune,
Yeah,
so we can
that's
zip right
And
past.
did we do your number 3?
It was Substance. Mine was
Gotcha.
Substance.
All right.
Oh, 'cause you said it, right.
All right. So either Pinn or James. Number 2.
So back-to-back Conor O'Malley films. So Corey's,
There we go.
which Bill kind of alluded to earlier.
Sorry, I spoiled it. Sorry.
No, it's all good. It's my number 2. This is another movie where, excuse me, if you want to get my comedic sensibility, this is another example. Now, what we were talking about earlier, this is absolute just surreality, silliness with a weird callback / fascination with Jim Carrey's performance in The Mask. It's just about this guy. He's a family man. He's in the suburbs, and he has sort of like a psychotic break. It's really like Lost Highway meets The Substance. Like if somebody ever wanted to like program a double bill, this would work so well with The Substance, just from the body horror aspect to the gore to the kind of like goofy craziness of it all. And to be clear, this is only a short. Corey's is like 12 or 15 minutes long or something like that. So it's a nice movie to play at the beginning or the end of The Substance if you were programming some kind of like new age or new era body horror. It's very funny. It's very silly. There's some like super on the nose references to 2001: A Space Odyssey, but it's also very funny. Yeah, I can't say enough of it. And much like Rap World, Corey's is also free to see on YouTube on Conor O'Malley's YouTube page. So yeah. I can't recommend it enough. It's really funny, and it's also not that long. So.
Marcus, have you seen
it up right now?
The funniest talk show appearance by any human this past year was Conor O'Malley went on Seth Meyers, and he was a staffer on Seth Meyers for years. He was one of the writers. He was on camera, and I think it's an 8-minute spot he does, and it's obvious that Meyers is absolutely just like completely smitten by what Conor O'Malley does. And there's something he gets to do that Seth Meyers can't do as a comedian because he's sort of he's got a lot of he's a showrunner and he's a formalist and all that stuff. But Conor O'Malley comes in and just essentially runs roughshod over the sitting on the couch and talking about himself. And it is as good a performance as Corey's if you watch him do the Seth Meyers bit. It's fucking hilarious.
Also, shout out to Seth Meyers he tweeted about Corey's and it got more attention than the original. Like when it finally went up to stream on YouTube, Conor O'Malley shared it. But Seth Meyers' tweet of the film got way more attention for it. It was just something simply he shared the YouTube link and it was like, Conor O'Malley is my Kubrick. And then it just got so much attention. It was nice. It was nice of him you get a late night talk show host tweeting this super weird, surreal comedy. It's great. I love it.
Are we past the point where someone like Conor O'Malley is going to want to have his movies played in the IFC Center? Like, is the future? I mean, it's going to sound like I'm 10 years late to the party, but it sounds like, YouTube is a more viable approach than like the Angelica or a theater along those lines.
It would be the perfect progression because outside of his television work, which is like extensive, in terms of him being on camera, it was like he would make these little remember Vine? It was like he'd make these like little Vine shorts and then TikTok. And then he has all these appearances on all these like Adult Swim and Netflix shows. Then he makes this short film called Corey's. Then he makes Rap World, which is like longer.
Yeah, I got both of them open in tabs to be watched after we finish recording.
And now the next step is like, I think he should make a feature. I think it would be great. But again, it's not, like you said, I think IFC, a theater like that is like the best bet for him. I'll be the first in line if he makes a theatrical release. I would love to see something he does on the big screen. Because to be fair, Corey's has some really awesome visuals. Rap World is ugly on purpose. Like I said, Rap World is a found footage film. So it's just a lot of camera moving because it's from the perspective of someone holding a camcorder. But Corey's is actually beautiful to look at in a lot of spots. So, yeah.
Nice. All right. Mr. James, number 2.
Furiosa.
I have a clip queued up. My favorite little stunt or gag from the flick I managed to find on YouTube. So full disclosure, I included it in my top 10 as number 10 as well. I thought this movie got unfairly maligned, although I will concede a little long, and perhaps Mad Max should have been in it for more than 3 seconds. But I think time will be kind to Furiosa. But did anybody else include it in or have honorable mentions for Furiosa in their
honorable
lists?
mention? Definitely. Yeah.
No.
Gotcha. All right, well, Mr. James, make the case for Furiosa. The floor is yours.
Well, first of all, the Octoboss, which you just showed in the clip, I am a bit of a Mad Max neophyte, right? Like I grew up with Thunderdome, so I watched that. It was on HBO basically every weekend for a couple of years. So I watched that over and over again, but I didn't see
the Tina Turner music video as well on MTV.
Yeah, I didn't see the first 2 Mad Maxes until probably in like the last couple of years. Saw Fury Road in the movie theater, saw it a couple of times, enjoyed it. But for me, this is sort of the movie that has motivated me to go back and rewatch all of them because I love this so much. I think you put Made in England, the Powell and Pressburger documentary, James, in your top 10.
My number 1.
This for me is sort of like that. When I watched Made in England, I thought, man, I got to go back. I got to rewatch Peeping Tom. I want to see all of these movies. I totally missed. There was a MoMA Powell and Pressburger retrospective that included every one of their films. I did not get to go see any of them or the documentary. I watched it at home, but I really wished I had gone and seen it. It's going to be the same thing for me for the Mad Max series. As you pointed out, this is the one that features the least Max Rokitansky, but doesn't matter. I just love the world building. I loved the nipple ripping. I loved, I loved everything about the movie. I enjoyed Tom Burke's performance. I think everybody talks about Hemsworth.
Burke, absolutely.
He was like just brought heat. I want to see a movie with that character now. I just can't get over how much I enjoyed this movie. I was not expecting to like it. It sort of bombed at the movie theater.
Big time.
I have no idea why. Like,
but not first, but Mad Max Fury Road, while it's beloved and fondly remembered, only made about $350 million as well and got a few Oscars. But like, it was beloved by the cult, but it wasn't like Avengers or whatever. So I think people were kind of misremembering just how widespread the popularity for Fury Road was. Honestly, the most popular of all of them is the first Mad Max from 1979, which was made for, I think, less than $1 million and grossed over 100 million worldwide. That's a successful movie. I mean, it was a global fucking phenomenon of truly biblical proportions. And then Road Warrior was a hit, but it didn't replicate the success of the very first Mad Max. So it's Mad Max from 1979 that made all the goddamn money. But yeah, Furiosa, I do think because it's the most novelistic of all the five, and it kind of fills in the corners of the world and allows you to kind of live in that world and immerse yourself. I think the diehards over time will come to love it, because if you want to learn about like Fury Road, they ride out into the desert, they turn around, come back. Brilliant. But you don't learn a lot about the world apart from a few little details. Furiosa really lets you immerse yourself in this world. So yeah, I have not been able to stop thinking about it since I saw it.
Yeah, the Greenland, I'm assuming because I know that there was a Greenlandish-ish area in Thunderdome, but I don't think it was actually the Greenland. I think they had another spot. So there were all these places and people that were introduced, the anthology nature of it. I think if anybody described it to me ahead of time, I would have been like, that sounds dumb. I don't want to see like an anthology film or something that's chunked out into sections. It totally hit for me. And it's the movie that I saw this year that I'm most excited to go back and rewatch.
And I thought Anya Taylor-Joy nailed it. There's something about watching her with those giant fucking eyeballs of hers with that hair whipping around her face as like flames are exploding and she's blowing dudes' heads off. She was totally game, and she's a skinny little thing, but I believed her every second of the way. And I liked her mother in the big chase scene at the beginning, where she's shooting motorcyclists and like taking bits and pieces of their gear, adding it to her own, and continue. It's like that is so Mad Max, where you basically like ravage the gear of your opponents in order to get like 10 feet further along in the desert. Great chase scene to open up the film. So, Bill, what are your theories on why this movie didn't perform? Like, if Charlize Theron had done it and they'd made it 5 years early, did it miss its window? Did it miss its moment?
It's mind-boggling. I saw it. Me and Matthias saw it opening night, man. Like we catch all these things. We caught Dune together. We caught Furiosa. We saw this was made for us. We walked out fucking ecstatic. We were bopping our way home from the train station in Amsterdam. We were just like floating because it was so good. I went back. I saw it a week later, when I came back to New York back in the summertime. I fucking saw it again because it was like, it's not a fluke that he's sticking the landing. I have no idea why it did not perform. I think that people are stupid. I think they're fucking idiots. That's the only thing. It's the reasonable thing to think, and that's being charitable, is that somehow they all have fucking lead poisoning or they're drinking mercury right out of a thermometer. I have no idea. Maybe they're scraping the radium off of old watch hands. But this is a great movie, and people fucking blew it, and they don't know what they're missing. And the thing is, it's like, John, like you were saying about like George Miller, the older he gets, it's like he is proving more capable at having novelistic storytelling. And I think another guy who's sort of the same age as him is Ridley. Ridley is going the other way, where his movies start to get blunter and dumber and more facile as he gets older.
Or just like lazier. Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, he's not lazy because he's making a movie every 75 minutes.
But highly motivated, but his films don't feel like...
The movies themselves are,
they lack
cathedral, blah, blah, blah.
But it's like if George Miller, it makes sense that you start out crashing cars in Australia and running over a little girl back in 79, and his movies get incrementally more complex because he's literally that smart. He's just seeing the world differently, and so it's like the towering intellect of this trained medical doctor who became a filmmaker just tells different stories now. And so
he's not so smart because he made 3,000 Years of Longing with Idris Elba and Tilda Swinton, which underperformed, and I think that killed all the momentum. The moment Fury Road became a cultural phenomenon, they should have broken ground on Furiosa and started shooting it right then. 9 years. the moment was lost.
They were stuck in hell. They stuck in turnaround hell. It was like a gigantic squabble. It wasn't his fault. He would have done it. Except it was the worst time to have a protracted legal battle for that movie.
Yeah, salary disputes. And then eventually when they released the film, apparently everybody was at home watching The Beast or something instead of actually going out to see it.
Yeah.
You're saying that, that Idris Elba Tilda Swinton movie. My in-laws went to go see that in the theater. They didn't like it. And then my father-in-law, he's like a big Long Island guy, like a big gruff guy. He's like, this is one of your weird films. You'd probably like it. The way he said it to me. I was trying to tell, I was like, Randy, no, I don't like that movie. So I don't put that
there was one story I remember early on, because it tells like several different stories from his past, but there was one story early on in the movie that was like 5 or 10 minutes long. I was like, wow, this is like the coolest shit George Miller's ever done, but it's just this one segment. But the movie didn't quite work for me either, and I just wished, I mean, irrespective of all the legal squabbles and whatnot, I just feel like the moment for Furiosa came and went, and they missed their window. But who knows? I hope the time will be kind to Furiosa, where people don't come to it with the same baggage or expectations and can just enjoy it for what it is. But yeah, the reality is Mad Max, The Road Warrior, Beyond Thunderdome, Fury Road, and now Furiosa. It's a hell of a fucking saga. A strong contender for the most consistently good science fiction saga ever. Like another contender might be Alien and Aliens, but there are a lot of terrible Alien movies. Star Wars has 2 good movies, a lot of terrible movies. Star Trek has a few good movies, but a lot of terrible ones. Like, there are not a lot of great science fiction sagas where you have a lot of good movies. Mad Max is one of the good ones.
Yeah.
All right. Are we up to our number ones for everybody?
I think we are.
All right. Yes. Well, I know we already did Brutalist for John James. So either Bill or Marcus, lay it on us. What is your number one?
All right. Marcus, take it.
Well, spoiler alert, I actually said it on last year's episode, but it wasn't technically a 2023 movie because it didn't have a distributor yet. So I can say it this year again. It's Eureka, Lisandro Alonso's Eureka. So much of the promotion for this movie includes Viggo Mortensen, and without spoiling anything, it's not, the character died. It's not anything about that. It's just like, it's almost dishonest how much they're pushing Viggo Mortensen in the promotion of this movie. So if you're going to see a Viggo Mortensen movie, you're going to be disappointed, and I'll say no more than that. But if you want like just beautiful visuals, and it's almost like it's like a Peachapong or a Sithical style film, but like it's right next to Uncle Boone Me in terms of like the plot, in terms of humans transforming into animals, and just beautiful scenery and all that stuff. That's what it is. And there's also a nice little tongue-in-cheek. The first 20 minutes of the movie is such a like middle finger to critics of his previous film that also starred Viggo Mortensen. And normally, I do think it's a little childish when directors make a point to be like, hey, critics, F you for such a chunk of the film. But he does it kind of tastefully that I actually appreciate it. This is one of those rare times where I appreciate a filmmaker, taking a jab at critics.
And also, there's enough of a large movie audience out there that hates movie critics, where I feel like picking fights with critics, you actually might win over an audience. Picking fights with the audience might backfire, but picking fights with critics, you might actually find yourself with a rabid fan base.
I mean, I'll say it. It's if you like westerns, the first 20 minutes are for you. And if you saw Lisandro Alonso's last film, Xiaoxia, it's about Viggo Mortensen plays this guy who's just trying to find his daughter who's disappeared. And it's just a more realistic kind of grueling look at what it would be like if someone in the early 1900s went to look for someone. It would just be super boring. It's not, and that was kind of that was a big criticism of the movie. Like, this is boring. Nothing happens. It's like, well, when you're on horseback looking for someone, it's like most of that trip is going to be boring. So he's kind of like, okay, critics, you want gunslinging and all that stuff? I'll do it. And that's what he did in the first part of this movie. And then something happens, and then it's like, oh, wait, what? And then the rest of the movie is kind of very unexpected. So I love this movie. I've been gushing about it for like a year and a half since I saw it at 2003's New York Film Festival.
So 2023.
Oh, Jesus, 2023. Yeah. My gosh. Yeah. So I love it very much. I'm a big fan of Lisandro Alonso in general. This might be my favorite movie of his, too. So
nice. I have still not yet seen it. So, Bill, have you seen it?
I have not, no.
Mr. James, have you had a chance to check it out?
I'm excited to check it out in the future.
Martin Kessler, when he finally saw it, I got very excited because I know that Martin Kessler's a fan of his previous film, which is referenced in this movie, And when he finally saw it, I was like so happy because as I was watching it, the first time I watched it, I really was thinking about Martin a lot. I was like, I think he'll like this. I can't wait.
I would love to do a podcast one day where you and Martin count down your top 10 favorite boring movies, because the both of y'all have a soft spot for long, boring movies that are secretly profound. But I don't know if I've survived the experience. I might have to like take a nap during it, but I just want to get
Carlo
list.
Pangalangan in there too. He's got some. He's got some.
But that would be the point. You should fall asleep in a show about boring movies.
Yeah, Pangalangan's like, oh, there's this great film about the rotation of the Earth, and it's 15 hours long. Like,
All
right,
yeah. I guess, and that's true. But then at the same time, I think the reason why I love Carlo and his taste is that he'll have that 6-hour Filipino movie about an elephant, but then at the same time, he does love like the Fairley Brothers, and he loves Eric Andre. Like he loves.
And his podcast is coming back. He sent me a DM the other day, which I need to respond to. He's bringing it back and he wants me to come on and talk about some topic. Anyway, I was like, yeah, sure. Anyway, but he is great dude.
Awesome.
All right, Bill, give us a good one. What's your number one?
It could only have gone this way, James. Number one is Anora. It's just
the taste. I got you. All right, I got a little clip ready to rock. Booyakasha.
15. Cash up front.
Deal.
Deal.
I like Anora quite a bit as well. It was my number 7 in my list, but make the case.
Anora is the taste sensation sweeping the nation, right? I saw it in there's a particular theater in Amsterdam that caters to expats. I mean, mostly because they show foreign films that are subtitled in English. Obviously, most of the subtitled films are going to be in Dutch, which doesn't really I still don't speak it well enough to handle this. But mostly, like, this is the kind of thing they would show at a sort of American themed theater. Not that they exclusively American clientele. Anyway, so I went to this place, and it was anywhere you go in Amsterdam to the movie, you're going to hear a billion different languages in the theater, not just Dutch, not just English, but they were Russian speakers. They could have been Ukrainian speakers for all I know. You hear Spanish people, the Germans. Amsterdam's a melting pot.
What about Uzbeki speakers? Because apparently she's an Uzbeki Russian, but her community she's from.
That is very specific. Yeah, very specific part of the Brooklyn she comes from in terms of the demography, but. Everyone in my Amsterdam theater, and granted, I mean, it's probably 60 people or so, every fucking line went over. I mean, every reference hit. And I was having an out-of-body experience because it was the movie for me that made me miss New York more than any that since I'd left in 2019. This was a love letter, an ode to Sheepshead Bay, to Brighton Beach, to, these parts of Brooklyn that people don't really see. Coney Island is one thing, but even Coney Island is kind of like a little dispossessed. People don't show Coney Island in movies.
Yeah, they just think about the Warriors if they think about Coney Island.
Yeah, and they show the Wonder Wheel and the Cyclone, and they kind of forget about it. But it's like this movie was like woven into the fabric between Tatiana's, the restaurant right there on the boardwalk, and the candy shop that's next to Nathan's on the other side on the it's on the west side of Coney Island, on the side of Nathan's there. Like, there are places in this movie that are like so in the terroir of Coney and of the Russian Jewish scene out there. It was so specific and it was so successfully done. Again, he's an outsider. Sean Baker's an outsider that somehow essays these things and make them feel incredibly lived in and sort of like understood, whether it's that, what was that, Galveston, Texas, oil refinery town he covered in Red Rocket, which looked like the most depressing place in the world, or the
you think he'd be good at one or the other, but he happens to be good at both. Yeah.
And the busted up,
but as long as there's a donut shop and a 7-Eleven or two, like he seems right at home. He loves those late night junk food spots that are open at 4 a.m.
But I mean, this was hilarious. This was sexy. This was driven as much by Mikey Madison's inspired performance. She's had a big chain of these incredible roles in big movies, but it's like this is her chance to sort of say, no, here's what I do. Not in a ensemble, not necessarily as part of a gigantic tapestry of film, but mostly as a character study of someone who is showing what it's like to be a sex worker, a hustler, someone who's out there fucking for money, and then making no apologies about what she's doing, and that's the thing. The comparisons were quick to Uncut Gems and Good Time, and it's those things are all there where it's like it's at night and late night and dawn and an early morning in New York, where you're just chasing after someone who doesn't want to be found, like it's Griffin Dunn running around Tribeca in After Hours again. And again, I love the fact that this is a part of Brooklyn that you don't get to see very often. And these Russian actors that they cast, the Chalamet looking kid who played, can't remember his name, but it was really Yuri, the Gopnik, the sort of leg breaker guy who has this sort of quiet, soulful intensity.
He's great. He almost steals the movie in some cases.
It's just this magic dance, this thread connecting him and Anora along the way, where it finally ends with this heartbreak. And some people have did not get that last sequence, so they didn't think it was earned. I mean, I just sat there, I'm nearly weeping in my movie chair, thinking, I can't believe this.
I gave a little silent applause at the end after that final scene.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I love it. I think it's going to stick the landing. People will be talking about it. I mean, and it's really, I think the awards ceremony for actress is a neck and neck race between Mikey Madison and Kidman for Baby Girl, which is not on my list, nor is it in my honorable mentions, but it's a strong, fine performance. But Mikey Madison, is just showing us come on, take her on, bro. Come at me. Let's just see what else she can do and try to dethrone her,
Yeah, I first noticed her in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, where she gets her face melted off by a flamethrower and attacked by a dog. But she had a serious pair of lungs and did some serious screaming. And I know she's in one of the recent Scream movies. But her career is going to be different moving forward after Anora.
Yeah. I was going to say, you can already make an interesting little featurette on the Manson family people and their breakout this year. Specifically,
Maya Hawke, who was one of them, and she breaks
Austin
out.
Austin Butler.
Sydney Sweeney.
Sydney Sweeney, and what's her name? Whose daughter? Margaret
Qualley.
Qualley.
Margaret Qualley. Yeah.
Yeah, people talk shit about Tarantino for a lot of reasons, some more justifiable than others. But what you cannot deny, if he picks you for one of his movies, there's a good chance you might be discovered. And it shows you Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. A lot of those actors have gone on to better things.
Or revived. There was always that thing where it's like Harvey Keitel in Reservoir Dogs, John Travolta in Pulp Fiction, both Robert Forster and Pam Grier and Jackie Brown. People thought, Carradine was going to get this second. He didn't, but still, it was always the first 4 or 5 of his movies was about bringing back this former icon, former legend, and it worked for the most part. So yeah.
Mr. James, you're being very silent. Did you not see Anora?
Oh no, I did see Anora. Yeah, it's
hatred and withering disdain. What's going on?
No, I really enjoyed it. It was on my honorable mentions. It's a movie about sex work that neither demonizes nor glorifies.
Almost all of his movies neither glorify nor demonize. Like Tangerine. What's the name of the one with the one that's named after the little dog that the girl has? I'm totally blanking.
Oh, Red Rocket.
No, the one that was earlier than Tangerine.
I don't know that. Oh.
Keep talking. I will look it up.
Florida Project, which was great. I actually enjoyed Florida Project more than this movie, but I really enjoyed this movie. One of the movies where the ending, similar to what you were saying, Marcus, about The Brutalist, the ending of this made me go back and rewrite the entire story in my head and go, oh, okay, so that's actually the way that I should be watching this. A lot more brutal.
Starlet was the movie that preceded Tangerine.
Yes.
Starlet is well worth seeing as well.
Yeah, any of these movies where there's somebody vulnerable and they're throughout the entire movie, you're on edge about whether or not they're going to survive or they're going to be taken advantage of or something really bad's going to happen to them. It basically is you already mentioned the Safdie brothers, Bill. I totally thought that, but it really goes back to all the way to the bicycle thieves. It's always the trick of how are you not going to overwhelm me? And this way that he did it was he made everything he made everything funny until you had to go and reevaluate everything in retrospect and realize oh shit, none of that was funny. All of that was brutal.
Good point.
Although when she's screaming and they gag her, that I thought my brain was going to melt. She was screaming so intensely and the camera's inside of her mouth that she's just you could feel the terror of the guys that are trying to subdue her. I was howling during that sequence.
Yeah, it's very enjoyable, very funny. But I had my wife next to me. Every single time I'd laugh, I'd look at her and she'd just be like, this is terrible. What is happening here? And so I was able to watch it at both ways at the same time. And then the ending, Really enjoyed the movie. It didn't quite make my top 10, but it's not going to matter because it's 50-50 shot of winning Best Picture. So
yeah,
we'll be hearing a lot more about Anora in the coming months.
Indeed. Well, I've got one final clip, and the only reason I'm playing it is because Bill recommended that I upload it ahead of time. So I'm going to play a clip from my number one, Made in England, the films of Powell and Pressburger.
It's something that no other art form can do. It's pure film.
Everybody happy?
They wanted to hang on to their independence, and they suffered because of it.
Why do you think it was so important for you to show somebody dying for their art?
I think because I would do it myself.
I loved and adored this movie, and every once in a while a documentary will come along that reminds me that I don't really care about new movies nearly as much as I pretend to sometimes on this channel, because what really gets my pistons firing is discovering great filmographies or looking at a great filmography through fresh eyes, and just having a 2-hour lecture by an 82-year-old director who's obviously got, great movies to his name in his own right. The fact that he would take so much time out of his own life and career to just celebrate the work of Powell and Pressburger, I was deeply moved, but also I just fucking love the clips and love the analysis. And I love just like his analysis of what he describes as total film, where every aspect of the film, and I'm going to reuse this word that I used in my top 10 video that I made, but there's a word that Tony Stella introduced me to called Gesamtkunstwerk, which quite literally means, hang on, I'm going to,
it's the total artwork.
Exactly.
Richard Wagner. Yeah.
And there it is. He popularized the term, and I feel like it's a term that perfectly applies to the films of Powell and Pressburger when they're really firing on all cylinders, from the script to the music to the photography to the production design to the performances. Everything is a work of art in service of the greater whole. And yeah, Powell and Pressburger, for people who have not seen their stuff, I mean, A Matter of Life and Death, aka Stairway to Heaven, or I Know Where I'm Going, or The Red Shoes, or The Life and Death of Colonel Blimp, or Black Narcissus. I mean, the list goes on and on, but like the core of their filmography, it's some really juicy stuff. Not for everybody. It's like what they call English romanticism, and it's very intense and it's like overly theatrical in a lot of ways. But if you're on that wavelength of like, oh, I've been waiting my whole life to discover these guys.
It's ecstatic filmmaking. I mean, I feel like the earliest one of their movies I watched was The Spy in Black. I watched that for John Cribb's Pink Smoke podcast, and I didn't realize it's like, it was happening. It was in black and white. It was with Conrad Veidt. It was set in Scotland. And it's like, yet you can tell that you were in the hands of two masters before they even begin to build a full vocabulary at what they did. And yeah, I think the director's name was Hinton. He was a Scottish guy who made this movie working with Marty. Like the real challenge was like editorially, how do you lift the best bits of these guys' movies and lay it out in such a way that transmits that ecstasy? But you had so much fun watching all these clips. It's a fever. The documentary itself is a fever because it's a best of run through some of these indelible listening to the guys talk themselves, but also Marty doesn't say anything even one micron out of step, and none of it's hyperbole. He's absolutely correct, and he's honest in describing what these movies are like and what they meant for him. It is a great journey through their oeuvre.
Yeah, when you see how Michael Powell was basically living in like a trailer for years and had fallen on hard times, could barely heat his home, that when Scorsese came to hunt him down in the early 70s and was talking a mile a minute about how much he loved his movies, and he said Michael Powell was so reserved and he wasn't really speaking at that time, but as he learned later on, Michael Powell, for the first time in many years, felt the blood rushing through his veins, and it kind of gave him a second lease on life. And he kind of was like, oh yeah, I'm a great director. I don't have to be living in in hiding or in exile anymore. And it really helped him kind of get rediscovered by the world. So yeah, definitely recommend people hunt down that documentary.
And Powell, according to Scorsese, Powell repaid him in kind when Scorsese went through, I think pretty famously, had a really bad cocaine addiction.
Yeah.
And he
said was
Powell
bleeding out of every orifice body at the same time. He was so unhealthy. Like he was, bleeding internally everywhere.
And from this documentary, I'd never heard him say this before. I knew De Niro played a role in his intervention, but I didn't realize that also Powell was a major force in helping him. And he Thelma Schoonmaker eventually married Powell. So their relationship is very strong, but it also clearly Scorsese is grateful to him as a human being as well as a director.
Well, I'm grateful to all you gentlemen for carving out so many hours around Christmas and New Year's when y'all have family and travel and other things occupying your time. But we're coming up on the 3-hour mark. So as a way of just bringing this to a close, thank you to all three of you. I love this annual tradition. Where can people find y'all online if they missed it at the beginning, if they want to talk more about some of the things that we overlooked, or if they just want to have deeper discussions about the movies we've tackled so far?
If you just Google Pinland Empire or PinlandEmpire.com, but if you Google it, my Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky will come up. Speaking of,
and you're no longer shadow banned on Twitter, Pinland Empire.
Oh, apparently not. Yeah. And speaking of overlooked, like James said, I do have to do. I'm not going to talk about them, but 23 movies that I saw this year that I missed last year, Fallen Leaves and Perfect Days, are also amazing. So Perfect Days, especially, that movie quite literally is perfect.
Is that the Kaurismäki?
Fallen Leaves is the Kaurismäki movie, and Perfect Days is the Vendors.
Yeah, Vendors.
Yeah. Those would have been on my top 10 last year had I seen them. 2 movies would have got bumped. Yeah.
Very nice.
I'm on Twitter, as I said before, at William Scurry. I have my own podcast called I Don't Get It. I do it with my buddy Noah Turner. We talk about popular culture through an old man's lens to see if there's something worth, somebody mentions Chapel Roan. And it's like, hey, what the hell is a Chapel Roan? So our job is to look at it and see what the fuck that means and whether or not we like it. And I do this every single year we do this, but it's like almost every single movie we talked about, Marcus has written about on Pinland Empire. And it's more specific and there's different references. And it's like, it's the B side of what we just heard here, but it's like actually read the capsules of what he wrote throughout the course of the year, because it's an added depth to even what he said in this place too.
Thank you. I will say I wrote about, with the exception of Hard Truth, because I haven't formed anything yet. Every movie I mentioned has a review or a post or a couple too. Like I did 2 different blog posts on the substance. And even movies I didn't like, I still felt these deserved something. So Cuckoo, In a Violent Nature, things like that. I even wrote about movies I wasn't crazy about or just downright didn't like, but felt I needed to say something. So yeah, I did a lot more writing this year on Pinland Empire.
And John James, I don't know if you remember this or not, but we did a part 1 to Ernst Lubitsch years ago. And I'm going to hold you to your promise that at some point on this channel, maybe what we can do is just do like a buffet, like a top 10 Ernst Lubitsch like starter kit for people where we can, but it's something you're invited back on this channel anytime, but I'm keen on getting back into some Ernst Lubitsch because I feel like there are some movies that we deliberately left out of that conversation then, and we are overdue in revisiting the topic.
I can't wait.
Yeah, it's got to happen.
All right, y'all. Well, can't thank you enough for checking out this video. We hope you enjoyed it. Like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, share with your friends, tell your parents, all that good stuff. But we hope everybody has an amazing new year. Let us know in the comments below what you thought about some of our choices. But more importantly, as always, onwards and upwards.
It ain't like it used to be, but it'll do.
You know how to whistle, don't you, Steve? You just put your lips together and blow.